watching HALENVILLE Live with Fruitcake Tony. Woo! Wow!
All right. What's up, Charles?
Hey,
what's going on, you guys?
We are live. Yes, we are. Liftoff. February 13th, 2024, the day before Valentine's Day. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
The day before VD.
Don't forget
right.
Don't forget nothing now.
Are you ready? That's the question.
Forget nothing.
Are you ready?
Ed, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Doing great, Tony. The snowstorm missed me, so I am very happy about that.
There you go. Always nice when that happens.
Yeah, I'm sure Brendan is happy. He got nailed, I'm sure. And he wanted the snow. I didn't. I was so happy this morning when there was nothing.
There you go.
But a dusting. So.
Look, I haven't seen Flake 1. I'm a little pissed off.
Not tied, Charles.
I like seeing some snow. A couple of this and that's are totally cool. I mean, I love when my subdivision gets at least paralyzed for 3 days. It's cool, man.
I like when the snow events here in Carolina end up rain events. You know.
That just makes for one big slush float, man. That's, I don't know. No. It's all good. I want to see some white on the streets, man. That's what I want to see.
Not me, dude. Not me.
Let the skiers and snowmobilers have it in the mountains. Or maybe, on Christmas. Christmas is fine. White Christmas is great. But other than that, 50-something years living up here, I'm tired of it.
Yeah. Spring will be here soon enough.
Yeah.
We got a jam-packed spring around here too, so get ready. Yeah. All right, so
standing.
We got Jeff Goble from Final Resonance TV here tonight in the house with us. You guys watch all his stuff on YouTube. I know I sure do. And it is some tasty stuff. And we're going to look at a bunch of his stuff and a lot of his latest stuff. We're going to, at some point tonight, too, a little later on, we're going to do some nearly impossible Van Halen trivia. Yeah. All right. So for tonight, we're gonna float you $1 million off the top.
Must have cash.
Wow.
Yeah, you'll get some dough. But for tonight, I'm gonna change things up. I put something else in here. Daisy, where's it at? There it is. And we're gonna play for a pass from the Balance Tour.
Yeah.
Nice.
One of these kind that you
All
peel
right.
off like that. In the middle.
Nice.
Yeah. That and the bill, and that's later on. That's nearly impossible Van Halen trivia. You'll catch that at about the time you get hungry or sick of us or both. We'll give you a little break and go to the fridge and come back, and you can score that cool balance pass. That's
So
what
you're saying that nice, beautiful satin jacket you had is not included in the prize pack?
That nice what?
Satin jacket that you're wearing, that's not included? That's a beautiful. It looks like satin. Oh, it's leather?
That's
Is that leather?
baby.
Oh, wow.
That's from Balance Tour, dude.
That is beautiful. You are in balanced mood.
I am. I'm in a balanced kind of mood.
That's must-have
You
gear
are
right
too.
there, man.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
Nice.
Okay. Before we bring Jeff in, let's open up the chat and bring them in. All right.
It's hopping.
It is.
All right. All right. There we go. I'm going to scroll all the way. I'm going to climb the mountain. And I'm going to go as far as it takes me. Lord have mercy. All right. If you're just joining, I'll see you in a half an hour. No, never mind. All right. All the way to the top. There's our brother Bent Tom. What's up, dude?
Tommy, it's good to see
Tommy.
you. Love you, brother. Right on, man.
And right behind him is Kurt 5150. Right on, Kurt.
Kurt, you're right.
Good to see you,
man.
bro. Part of
Right
the
on.
Under the Bus dudes on Wednesday, YouTube. Yeah, that's it. There's R2, R3 Locking Nut, our Van Halen brother right there. He is.
Right on, R2. It's good to see you, bro.
He's part
Right
of
on,
the
man.
OU812 crew. They're on YouTube. They do their thing on Thursday and Sunday. You know all about them. And if you don't, OU812, go down below and you'll find the link OU812.
Right on.
Subscribe, and I'll see you over there. Their show on Thursday at 8 p.m. All right? Nice. All right.
And Sundays at 5.
And Sundays? That's right. All right. Let me see here. Monique's in the chat. Ed, good to see you.
Good to see you, Monique.
Hey,
Right
Kurt.
on.
Always nice to see Monique. Let me scroll down here. There's Sandra in the house.
All right,
What's
Sandra.
going on, Sandra? Good to see you,
Good to
ma'am.
see you, Sandra. Right on.
Right on. You rock. All righty. Always great to see Sandra's the co-creator of this madness around here. Yeah. Right on. All right, let me scroll down. I see Andy Carson. What's
Right
up,
on,
Andy?
Andy.
All right, Andy.
You rock, brother. Right on, man.
Good to see you, Andy. Hope your week's going good. Mikey Mojo in the house, Charles.
Mikey.
Right on, Mikey.
What's up, brother?
Right on,
All
brother.
right. Let's see who else is hanging tonight. All right. I hope everyone's week is going well. Mine is so far. Fast and furious. There's Lewis at Fairfield Guitar.
Lewis.
What's up, Lewis? Always
Right
good
on,
to see
Lewis.
you, sir.
You rock, brother.
All right, let's see who else. If you're just joining, say hello in the chat. It is Tuesday. This is Halenville Live. There's our boy Paulie Walnuts. What's
Right on,
up,
Paulie.
dude?
Right there, brother.
He got the snow.
Oh, he got the snow out there.
Oh yeah,
Gotcha.
9 inches.
Good to see you, Paulie. There's Keith Campbell in the house.
Hey,
What's up, Keith?
Keith,
Right
what's up,
on,
brother?
Keith.
Always
Right
good
on,
to
man.
see Keith. There's John DeShane.
John.
Good
Good
to
to
see
see you,
John.
John.
He's
Right on,
part of the
John.
OU812 crew over there. You two dudes. Can't say it enough. Go over there and, yeah, you'll dig it. Yeah. Lawnmower Tapes in the house, Ed.
Hey, what's up, lawnmower? Hit that
It's good to
thumbs
see
up.
you, brother. Right on,
Yep.
Lawnmower.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Hit that thumbs up.
Christopher Lives.
Right on.
Silva.
Right on, Christopher. Love you, brother. You rock.
Ooh.
All right. I'm scrolling down. Still scrolling. Nice to see all you guys here tonight. Randy Price, good to see you, bro.
Right on,
Hey,
Randy.
Randy.
By the way, quick shout out, me and Randy. Randy is going to an undisclosed music store location somewhere near me this weekend. We're going to hook up, have lunch. He's going to drop some serious coin on a serious guitar. And I can't wait for him to tell you guys all about it.
I
All
can't
right.
wait
Right on,
either.
man.
Holy shit.
Right on.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's like having a
Mitch
baby.
Heyman in the house, Charles.
Right on,
What's up, Mitch?
Right there, brother.
Good to see you, Mitch.
You rock, bro.
All right, let's scroll down. And there's Ryan,
Hey, what's
Right
up,
on,
Ryan?
Ryan. You rock,
captain
bro.
of the OU812 crew over there.
Right on.
Yeah, always great to see you, Ryan.
Tone master.
There's Patrick Trites.
Hello, Patrick.
See,
Come on, man.
Patrick.
It's good to see you, dude. It's good to see you. Right on.
Nice. All righty. Thanks for being here, everybody. It is always such a luxury to do this and to come on here and talk about Van Halen. I mean, damn.
Yeah.
All right, there's Cushman. What's up, bro?
Kush,
Right
yeah.
on, Fish, man.
What's
Right
up?
there.
It's good to
Bam,
see you.
right there.
Guitar Man 45. What's
Good
up,
to see
bud?
you, Bo. Right
Hell
on,
yeah.
man.
What's up,
Right
bro?
on, bro.
There's Ronald in the house. What's up, man?
Hey, Ronald.
Ronald, right on, Ronald. It's good to see you, bro. Right there.
All right, everybody, welcome. It is Tuesday. I hope your week's going swell. Now it should be going even more swell.
Oh,
and we can start now that Quentin's here.
Oh, we got
Right on, Quentin.
Jonathan.
You rock, brother.
Jonathan McCulloch is here.
Jonathan, right on, Jonathan. Good to see you, bro.
Alt G.
Right on, Alex.
They're all coming in. This is
I
awesome.
didn't see that name yet, Ed. Welcome, Jonathan. Didn't see you, dude.
Yeah, Ronald.
There it is.
Ronald,
Yeah. Right on.
Did we say Ronald Allard?
Yeah.
Okay.
We said Ronald.
Right on,
Say it
man.
again.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Jonathan.
Oh, the Hitman's in here too.
Nice to see you, dude.
Dwight.
Six
Dwight.
fingered assault.
Al G, what's up, dude?
Yeah. Six fingered is in here too. Wow.
Right on, guys.
Dwight.
Full house. We got a full house.
Six-fingered assault? Dude, right on, bro.
What's up, man?
Very cool. Very cool.
All righty. Nice.
All the cool
Everyone's
people.
fortunate to be here. Our guest is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
awesome.
man. You guys know him. My name is Jeff. What's up, dude?
Hey.
Right
what's up?
on. Right on, Jeff. Cool, man.
You guys know Jeff and his stuff. And yeah, let's not waste any more time. Kids, Jeff Goble, there he is.
What's up?
Right.
Hey, Jeff.
How y'all
What's
doing?
up, Jeff?
See lots of my friends over there, Mikey Mojo and Mr. Fairfield Guitar himself.
Yeah.
Right on. Thanks for being here, Jeff. It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you guys. Keith Campbell, one of my other buddies, been on my channel once. One of my girlfriends is in here. Michelle. What's up, Michelle?
Hi, Michelle.
Welcome, Michelle.
Hey, Michelle. There she is.
Welcome to Halenville. Right on.
She's never been, so that's good.
Yeah. Right on. Welcome.
So,
KXM Rock.
KXM, it's good to see you, bro. Right on, man.
Right on. So Jeff, we talked last night, and I'm really surprised that our paths hadn't crossed. Everybody on the planet has watched all of your stuff, but I got to looking at your YouTube stuff. Mm-hmm. We do all of our stuff live over here,
right?
And you normally don't do a lot of live stuff over on yours.
Yeah. We talked about that a little bit last night. Since I still play full time, as a full time musician, so I play about 3 to 4 times a week. So it just depends what night I hit. So I could be playing on a Monday, I could be playing on a Sunday, I could play any day of the week. So it's really hard for me to kind of schedule something that's consistent. So that's why I don't really do lives. And I try to, catch you guys when I can, but it seems like it's always the replay that I watch.
Yeah. Right.
But I do watch all you guys, all of the different Van Halen fan things.
Yeah.
For sure. And I keep up.
Sure watch yours too, dude.
Thank you.
Jeff, you seem to, I'm sure you are. You have so much fun with your band. And I didn't realize that you were actually gigging that many nights a week.
Yeah. Usually,
can you elaborate a little bit about it? Because you guys are really good, and you've played some wonderful venues.
Yeah. Well, I have multiple bands, so I basically have a core band that I work with, a bass player and a drummer, and then we have different singers. So we have 2 girl singers, we have a guy singer. And then we have a tribute band that we do where we combine one of the girls and guys together, which is an 80s tribute. We dress up and do all that stuff. So between all those, and then I do acoustic in the early part of the week. In earlier parts of the week, I just do a duo acoustic. And so those nights I work with just one of those people generally. But that's kind of what I do on my day job, if you will, or night job. It depends on how you look at it. Both sometimes. So that's kind of what I do normally. And then I do the interviews when I can get them, and I contact folks. And some people like Steve Stevens was, he didn't make me go through any kind of agent or PR people. He just said, I'll do it. I'm in,
Right on.
That is wonderful. You have a great manner about you, very professional in the way you don't do them live. And there's a benefit to that for us, because you get to edit it. You get to sweeten it up a little bit and make it a little more presentable. I find all of your content very refreshing, and we'll go into it in just a little while. Very cool, man.
You're a huge Van Halen fan, like the rest of us. Give us a briefing on how old were you and what year and what album and all that.
Okay. All right. Well, it's pretty simple. I was about 13 or 14 when I saw Van Halen's Unchained video on Don Kirshner's rock concert. If you guys remember that, it was for MTV. It was kind of like the only place you saw videos, or Saturday Night Special or whatever it was. So, that was the only exposure I had to live music. When I saw the Unchained video, man, there was just something about that just, I had been watching Kiss, of course, like almost all of us are Kiss fans. And I just felt like Kiss was like their own thing, and I could never be Kiss, like that was their thing. But when I saw Van Halen, I like connected with it, like, oh, I could maybe do this and have fun doing this. And so that's when I started playing guitar after that. And then, the rest of it's pretty much history.
Right on.
You are an outstanding guitar player. Personally, I think the first time I experienced you was 5-6 years ago.
Okay.
I think Dave Friedman had come out with the BEOD pedal, and you were doing a shootout between that and the new 5150. There were two 5150 pedals, if I recall correctly, and it was like a 3-part series or something.
Yeah.
That was my original exposure to you.
Okay.
Had my full attention at that point. I had no idea the Van Halen ride we all were going to be getting on at that period of time. It was crazy. Crazy, dude.
Yeah, I was like everybody. I grew up on the 80s stuff. I loved, obviously I loved George Lynch, who I just had on not long ago. And so that was a big honor, but with Dokken, because he was sort of like the second guy that I got into, besides Eddie. And then, and Eddie was always there, man, from day one. That was the thing, man. It just made me, everybody, all of us feel that same way about Eddie Van Halen. I know that, something about him just touched us all in a way that nobody ever had. It's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Right. And, Roth was really, because I was watching that feed was the feed where they showed Roth being interviewed by Jim Ladd initially, and they were in Roth's yard at his house. And so Roth kind of captured me like, well, who is this guy and what is this all about? And then the video came on. And when that came on, I was like, something about the drop D and the whole show and the fire and the end of that video, man. And then just hear the guitar, like I'd never heard anybody like that, because I came in later. I wasn't really that aware of Eruption before I saw the Unchained video. Right. So I had to go back to get that. Right. But I kind of heard the elements of that within the Unchained video and, some of the patterns and things he did. So that blew me away. So when I went back to the Van Halen 1, 2, and all the catalog, I started to kind of catch up. And yeah, man. And then of course it blew me away all the way through, the whole first bunch of albums is amazing. Right. And the anniversary was the 10th, right? So it was a big night this last weekend when I took out my Frankenstein replica and played it and had some fun.
When now are you a California kid?
No, I'm from Alabama.
Yeah. A lot of the treks and the road trips you do then, it's interesting. You appear so comfortable in California.
Okay.
You really do. You could transplant no problem, bro. You really could.
Well, there's a reason. And the reason is that I started going out there when I was 19. My guitar teacher instructor, he was the first person to take me to NAMM as I was a 19-year-old. I was a senior in high school that year.
What year would that have been, Jeff?
87.
Okay.
87. Okay. So I go to 87 NAMM for the first time. I'm 19, right? And that was the year that Eddie Van Halen jammed with Steve Stevens, if you remember that. And I got to see that. I got to see Steve Stevens and Eddie Van Halen together in 87 as a 19-year-old. So that began this trip where I got into the music business, selling retail, selling guitars, selling amps and stuff. And so that meant that every year I went out to NAMM. So I started going to California every year from the time I was 19. So yeah, I've been out there 30, 40 times over the last 40 years,
Wow.
So a lot of trips. Yeah, that's why I'm comfortable in LA, because I kind of know I know the land, and also the videos that you were talking about, with the Van Halen trail stuff. I actually started doing that years ago. I actually went out to these sites 10 or 15 years ago when I first started getting into looking at these sites in Pasadena. So there was like a period 15 years ago where I was putting this on Facebook, and this is before we had all this. So I was already doing this, and this is something I've kind of done. But as I've gotten, to be friends with Greg Renoff and read his book, of course, all these other locations became things that I wanted to see, like even
By the way, Jeff, just a quick interjection since you brought up Greg Renoff. Your interview with Greg Renoff, he's the historian, right?
Yeah.
You brought out history from him that he didn't even talk about in his book. It was a beautiful interview. You guys in the chat all need to check that out if you haven't seen it. That's some of his best content.
Yeah, Greg and I got together 7 or 8 years ago. See, so before the Van Halen stories stuff, I was doing a podcast just on musicians and on their kind of career paths. And when I read Greg's book, I had some friends in common. And I was like, Greg, man, I'd love to interview you. I want to come out to Tulsa where you're at and interview you at Kane's Ballroom where they played in 78. So that interview you see, it's a series called Musical Journeys, which was an original series of podcasts that I did for a number of years before I even tried to do a Van Halen thing. But anyway, Greg was part of that. And Greg and I had this great conversation. This is early when the book first came out. And we got to be buddies over the years, and that's kind of how Greg and I connected. But yeah, Greg had some great things to say in that. I love that one.
15 years ago, a lot of the landscape was a lot more accurate than it is today. Gazzari's, it's just the storefront's there, but it ain't Gazzari's anymore.
Right. It's the location more than anything. Yeah. Cause that's what I covered that in one of the videos that you're talking about. I went by there and just I put a photo of that in there, the original location, because that building, I don't know how much was torn down when they did tear it down, but I was actually at Gazzari's in the 90s. So I remember where it was. I've been inside of it before they tore it down, but yeah, so I kind of knew some of these locations anyway, but what I've been doing with Van Halen Trail is just kind of updating it I've done it 3 times over the last, say, 7 or 8 years. Mm-hmm. And as I find a new location, I want to go shoot at, the next year I'll do that, but I'll also go back and cover some of the old ones in case people haven't, like in this case, I've covered some of the things I've covered before, but I also try to get new ones like all these Victory Park and Hamilton Park. These are places they played, back in the day, that they've mentioned, in some of the, especially Eddie would mention those places, and I had a friend who was there in the early days who took me to these places, where you see them set up in the park on the grass. You've seen those photos, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
This guy was there. So he took me to the locations of those spots and showed me where it was.
Wow. And you had dinner with Lori.
Yeah, Lori.
That's awesome.
Lori and I go to dinner every year when I'm out. And Lori actually helped me last year with some of the shoots I did when we did some in-persons. We did Frankie Lindia together. And she went with me to Frankie's place, and we did that. And that was fun. We love hanging out together.
Priceless.
Yeah. Nice.
He's awesome.
So Jeff, what are each one? Episode 1 covers what?
Okay, well, the first thing, the way I laid it out was the Hot for Teacher was kind of the highlight, because this was a rare opportunity. A buddy of mine, Jared Pera, he's from Alabama, but he lives in Los Angeles, and he actually is going to be working at this school. So he was able to arrange it so we could get escorted in on a Sunday and be able to go into these places. Now, he'd already kind of scouted out where they were in the building and talked to people about where these places were in the building. The building's changed a lot. Like he mentions in the video, there was an earthquake in, I think, it was 94, right? The big earthquake they had. And so it messed up the school a good bit. But there's a lot of things when you look at it, like the tray ceilings, you can see like in the library when we're in there doing that. If you look on the tray ceiling, that the same in the cafeteria here in front of you, there's a little tray ceiling. That's kind of like a design aspect that you see in different rooms there. And that was up in the library as well. So when you watch the video back of Eddie walking down the tables, the ceiling's different because it probably fell in when the earthquake hit.
Wow.
But that tray along the edges and the pillar you see in the background are the original ones. We spent a lot of time trying to match those up and make these recreations for you guys so that you could really kind of see where these shots were taken and stuff. Yeah. So Lori was supposed to go with us, but she wasn't able to go that day. But we were hoping we could get Lori to go because she would have remembered more being on site there. But yeah.
That would have been incredible. Wait a minute.
I know.
Having a tour from the detention teacher from Hot for Teacher,
right,
at the high school it was shot at.
Wow.
I know. We tried to make that happen. Maybe we will next time. We can possibly go back there and do it again and have her go with us, and maybe she can run.
That's great.
Yeah. So that was a rare opportunity, and Jared made that happen for us. So yeah, pretty cool.
Excellent.
Have you talked to Scott Yeager about it?
Yeah, I did. I actually reached out to him because there's the scene where they're dancing in the video, the guys were dancing, right?
Trying to dance.
Yeah, right. There were two locations in the school that could have happened. There was an upstairs auditorium, and that was a smaller stage, more like a play stage. And then there was the stage downstairs would be the bigger performance stage. And we couldn't really figure out which one it was. So I went to Scott because Scott was at the shoot, and do you remember any of that in detail? He said, no, he said he was a guest of the Burton Ellies. So I think of David. So he didn't remember. And, but Lori might've remembered, but they were shooting all this at different times, and, they were in and out. And so it was, I don't know if whether Lori could have, figured that out either, but we tried our best to get as much of it as we could. And I don't think it's ever been done. So that was kind of cool.
Excellent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. When he told me he could do it, I was like, all right, I'm there, man. Just tell me where.
Incredible.
And I don't know. He says this in the video, but John Marshall, there's two John Marshalls. There's this one, which is in Las Feliz, I believe it is. That's about 20 or 30 minutes from Pasadena. And then there's a John Marshall in Pasadena, a block away from the kid's house, from Eddie's house. Was the middle school. There was a time when they went to school there. And there's two different ones that are named the same. They have some Van Halen history, which is kind of confusing.
Excellent.
Yeah. Of course, we know about the parachute stunt, right? Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. That was historic.
Right. It's pretty cool to go there and see it, see the location and get behind where the stage was at the end of this video. I managed to figure out how to get in there because they had gates everywhere, but I snuck around until I found my way back there.
You were right back. Yeah, man.
I think, Jeff, you made a statement. I forget exactly how you worded it.
Yeah.
Pound for pound, that stunt, possibly the greatest rock stunt in history.
I think so.
Arguably. Yeah, absolutely.
I can't think of anything else that was that cool. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, the funny part about this video is in the next Van Halen Stories interview, which was with Rob Broderick, who was Eddie Van Halen's kind of sound man in the early days before they kind of hit the road. That he actually did a lot of sound for him in the clubs, but then he did a little sound on that first tour. But Rob went to this show at Anaheim Stadium as a guest, and he actually thought they actually did it, even though he was there, right? And he went up to Rudy afterwards, and he goes, "I can't believe they did that, bro." And he's like, "Yeah, me either," and rolled his eyes like, "They never do that." He goes, I figure they never could do that, but yeah,
This was simulcasted in LA.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this was simulcasted, and so as they were coming down in the parachute and everything, and they were talking about it on TV. It was a big deal locally. It was huge. And the way it all went down, we didn't have a clue. We had no idea. I thought, and all of my friends thought, that they were skydiving, rocking fools. And
diving, rocking.
They pulled it off, man.
Right. That was the single, but runner up has got to be the Aerosmith Volkswagen.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's some pretty crazy stuff. That was it's a place that hadn't been vlogged either, and I since I was over that way for the NAMM show, it was right on the way, so I made that happen too.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, it was cool.
Awesome.
Great. It was. Yeah, I very much enjoyed it.
Good.
I did all of them, though.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt if Dave wanted to do that stunt for real.
Yeah, right. Well, here's an interesting fact that Tom told me about Dave, okay? When they went out in 78 on tour, they flew to Chicago for that first show, and they were in a high-rise hotel, like 38 stories or something. I forgot what he said exactly, but they tried to get Dave to come up to the window to look out of that 38-story window, and he was scared of heights. He wouldn't even go near the window in 78 now, okay?
Really?
So apparently he had this period where he was really afraid of heights. And then at some point, obviously, he got over that. He got over that, right? So yeah, he talks about that a good bit in the
wow.
in the interview. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's excellent.
Yeah, I didn't know that about Roth, that he was afraid of heights, but apparently
Never heard it.
there was
I
a
didn't know
time.
it.
Yeah, he wouldn't go near the window.
Episode 2, Jeff.
Yeah, Vasquez Rocks.
Yeah,
Pretty cool,
man.
right?
Yeah, that is really cool.
So you guys know that place from the Star Trek episodes, a lot of movies and whatever. This is where Eddie did his. I'm not sure if it was his exact last photo shoot, but it might have been his last location photo shoot. It was for Guitar World in 2015. The shot that you're seeing there that we're recreating was a shot he did with a photographer, with Ash Newell, and that was the only shot that was shot like this. Otherwise, you saw he was on the top of a rock. There was different shots that he did with the Star guitar and also the Circles, the Unchained guitar. And my buddy Ruben, who'd been on with me on Van Halen Stories, he's a local out that way. And we went out there and we kind of tried to recreate the shots with one of his guitars, which is an 80. I think that's the one from 83 that was on wasn't that the South American tour guitar? I think maybe. Yeah. So we took that out there and we did that, and we had kind of a good time doing that. It was actually really cool. I mean, that place is huge, man. It's if you've never been out there, it's about an hour north of LA. It sits on top of the San Andreas Fault. I think that's why it exists. Yeah.
Okay. That's what.
So it's a huge area though. If you want to go out there, I would go out there for the day, because we went out for a couple hours. We were like, man, we could be out here all day just walking around, checking out all the different formations and stuff, besides what we were doing.
People get lost out there.
Do they?
They'll go out there and they'll take off in a certain direction and they will literally get lost. That's how big it is.
Jeez.
Yeah, there was a sign, over towards the visitor center where there was a protected area, and it said don't go in here. There's bears, there's coyotes, there's mountain lions. They're in this area, a protected area. So yeah, you could get messed up out there if you're not careful, and you can fall off these rocks.
Tigers and bears. Right. Oh,
that's right.
You could bust your butt on those rocks for sure, because people climb up that thing and it's like 200 feet up.
I saw that in your video. Some guy standing at the top. I was like, whoa. No, thank you.
It's slippery too. I mean, we were doing this down low, and when I were trying to figure out where Eddie would have done this kind of open area next to it where you can park. And so this is pretty accessible. So he had to bring his guitars, and I didn't think that any of the shots would have been too far off that area, might have been to the side just a little bit, but we never did find the actual location of the cover shoot. And there's a video that I have on the Instagram, Forever Unchained 1981 Instagram, of Ash Newell taking those photos. There's a little clip that he put up somewhere, and Wolfie was with him that day. Matt was with him that day. So it was pretty cool.
Nice.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Of course, you guys know about the scratch logo down in at HALENVILLE. That's kind of something that's been around for a long time. But how many of you knew there were two of those?
Not until I watched your episode.
Okay, well, me either. Because what's funny is I was there at NAMM and somebody put up a picture of the green one. Huh. And I was thinking, and I was actually I was going to be staying around the corner from there. And so I was like, dang, I don't know how I missed that. But it is right on that same sidewalk. Just the green one's closer to the liquor store. And you see it looks like it says Van Allen, not Van Halen, which is where it's at Allen. It's Allen Street. Right. So I don't know what the history is exactly with why they did what, but it's pretty cool. And
do we know which brother wrote that?
Everybody that I've said, I think it's Alex, but I'm not sure. I've heard Alex. If anybody knows, say it in the comments. Yeah, it was cool. It's cool to go there and see that. That's literally walking distance to their house. So I always heard there was a restaurant in that little shopping area where the liquor store was. I heard there was a Mexican restaurant or something that they used to walk down through an alley to. That's one of the stories I've heard, but I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So apparently they frequented that little spot.
Very cool.
Very cool. So Las Lunas is on episode 4.
Yeah.
Nice.
Las Lunas. I always go to Las Lunas, when I'm there. I met with a guy named Tom Hensley, who was a local at the time, and he knew Eddie and lived like Tom. They all lived in the same block or two. There were the guys that went on the tour with him, Greg Emerson, the Brodericks, and Tom Hensley was in that same area of friends in the area. So he knew that house really well. And he had a guitar that Eddie and another guy had shot with a rifle. I don't know if you saw that in there, but or the 22 they shot it. They called it the executed strat, where they actually both got kind of drunk on Jack Daniels and shot the guitar.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
So he brought it to me and let me look at it and some other nice guitars. And we were out in front of the house. But I'll tell you this, we were kind of a little to the left of the house, not in the direct line that you see in that picture. And the one of the Uber Eats people came and delivered food there. So there was somebody there that day, and they're living in the house currently. I don't know. That house, I think it's a rental house, even though I've heard people say that somebody else owns it.
You went around back, right? At the garage?
I had to go around back. Yeah, I went around back.
Yeah, the alley. Yep.
And they were home one of those days. But
Do you think they get?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Do you think they get tired of people kind of
they
moseying around?
Yeah, they always have their shades drawn.
Well, I'm sure people respect their privacy and they don't go up on the lawn and in the back.
Shoot, Ed, I bet, I don't know, Van Halen fans come in every shape and size. I bet they've had people knocking their windows at 3 o'clock in the morning screaming, Eddie.
They could
happen, right?
Could happen.
I
mean, if you move in there, you got to know that's going to happen. I mean, you got to know. The way that I understand that is that house was sold to a developer and, a guy who's just basically a landlord over a bunch of different properties. And that still, from what I understand, now I'm not positive, but the paper trail leads to one person who owns that property. And I'm going to try to contact him next time I'm coming to town and see if I can get in the house. I want to get all the luck. I want to get in the house. I want to get in the house for all of you guys so we can, maybe they'll think of it. They think it's a good thing and it'll stop the constant people coming around. But
you didn't just walk up and knock on the door and introduce yourself, Jeff.
I could have, but I didn't this time. But
I'd want to buy it and turn it into a Van Halen museum.
Yeah, that the discussion about that house, we've talked about why they should make it an Airbnb, but then everybody was saying, well, they'll tear the house up.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that.
Take stuff. But it would be nice to be a museum. And I'll tell you guys on here because it's just a cool thing about the interview that I did with Tom Broderick. Now, I guess you all know that you've never really seen Eddie Van Halen talk about the house since he's moved out, right? Right. Everybody probably wonders why Eddie Van Halen never really discussed it again after he moved away. Mm-hmm. Well, I found out that Eddie Van Halen made a final tour to Pasadena and took a picture in front of the house at Las Lunas. And then he went to the school and took another photo of himself in front of the John Marshall School up the street. And those photos existed in 5150 up to the day he passed.
Oh, wow.
So he'd been back by. And the funny anecdote of this story was that he knocked on the door at Las Lunas and he told him he needed to cut the shrubs.
Those two big shrubs.
he told him he needed to cut the shrubs. And apparently they had no clue that it was him.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
That's priceless right there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Tom gets into that when we get into that Van Halen Stories episode that's coming out. We talk about that neighborhood. Some of those the Brodericks had a chance to go spend some time with Eddie prior to his passing in 19. So we get into that discussion, and you'll be able to hear that from him. It's pretty cool.
Cannot wait.
Yeah,
cannot wait.
Nice.
Wow.
So I got to tell you guys this story about the Pasadena Civic. The Civic, everybody thinks that they used to play in the auditorium almost every local source that I've talked to says it was never in that auditorium. It was actually in the exhibit hall next to it. The exhibit hall had a lower area in the early days. Apparently, it had a thing called the pit. Eddie talks about it in Jazz Obrecht's interviews where he calls it the pit. He says that we didn't play in the auditorium. We played in the pit. So I went and asked some people there about the pit. And apparently most of that was filled in, and they put a new exhibition hall above it. But there's still some of it underneath. It's kind of a lower underground area. And from what Tom was telling me, they used to play in different areas, but never in the auditorium. So I wanted to see some of these other exhibition halls just to see it. And Comic-Con was going on at the same time I was there in Pasadena on that Sunday. So I got a ticket to Comic-Con just to look at the building inside, to go around. And I kept running into Van Halen fans in the Comic-Con. Local people who were,
of course,
who were big fans. And they had history to tell me. They would tell me things, but they're friends and whatever. So I'm walking around the corner, and I run into Vinny Appice from.
Nice.
Yeah, he was there. He was there just being a guest of the Comic-Con. I got to meet him and stuff, and so it was kind of a fun thing to just pop in and all of a sudden I'm talking to people about Van Halen.
That's great.
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah, that's fun.
But my favorite Dio drummer, Vinny Appice.
Still rocking.
Absolutely.
Still rocking.
The last in line is coming. Actually, he's still rocking, and last in line is coming through North Carolina this year as well.
Yeah, no, he was telling me he played the night before somewhere. I guess maybe NAMM, but yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Episode 5. Go ahead.
In this episode 5, you went to Dave's house.
Yeah, David Lee Roth's house. I think, John Conklin, you guys know that John was there, right? Mm-hmm. That week too, right?
Yep.
And the gate was open the day John was there, right?
Yeah, he couldn't believe it.
Right? When I went last year, the gate was open, but I didn't go in, of course. And I told John when he posted that, I said, "Hey, be careful. There's a crazy guy who lives in that place.
He'll pull a gun on you.
Don't go in there, bro." And so anyway, I went by there, and the funny part about John and I ran into each other at the Guitar Center later by accident.
That's funny.
If you guys do that. But John and I John saw me and he yelled my name and I was like, "What are you?" I knew he was out in LA, but I didn't know we were going to run into each other. And we did. So that's cool. Maiden Lane. You guys know about Maiden Lane? That's where they did the practicing. That was one of the places they practiced in the garage up there in Altadena. They had a friend who was painting this house and they wanted some work done on it. And the guys would paint and then they would allow them to use the garage to practice up there on Maiden Lane. One of my guests went to a practice in there, Gary Putman.
Oh, wow.
From Dred Zeppelin. He went to a practice in there with the promoter that was promoting some of the shows for them. And got a chance to see him there. Pooh Bah Records. Pooh Bah Records is where Eddie used to buy his records, but they have 3 locations. One was the original one's downtown Pasadena, which is what this little flyer is on here. And then there was one on Walnut Street in the late 70s, according to Tom. And then later it's down by Guitar Center now, but it's still there, still in town, still a place. It's pretty cool.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Hey, Monique in the chat has put a couple of times. Can we put Jeff's information in the chat? I realize it. Is it down below, Tony?
Yeah,
He's asked about it a couple of times.
Jeff's YouTube link is down in the Go 4 or 5 down. You'll find it. Jeff Goble.
Yeah,
YouTube.
Final Resonance TV. Yeah, Keith has it right there. Final Resonance TV on YouTube. Yeah, that'll get you to all this content.
Yep.
And both sets of podcasts, musical journeys, and Van Halen stories. And then, of course, like Charles brought up, I do a lot of gear demos, and I have a few band videos up there, a little bit of everything, kind of. So I'll check it out.
Well, actually, let me rephrase what he just said, guys. He has a lot of gear demos. It's all really, really great stuff. He's a phenomenal guitar player, and he showcases some of the best gear in the Van Halen world. How was that, Jeff?
I love it.
Okay.
Charles just did a commercial for you.
Thank you, Charles.
It's all true.
Better
All
you than me,
true.
man.
Checks in the mail.
Kurt, be well, brother.
See you, Kurt.
Love you, bro.
So, Jeff, you really go deep, man. I mean, you obscure, you know, places, and that's great. That's great. You know,
Well,
I've learned quite a few things.
I told Tony last night, you know, my whole thing with this was like, you know, I'm looking down the road when we're all not here anymore, you know, and somebody's got to put this stuff out there for the next generation. You know, we see kids coming up that are getting attracted to Eddie Van Halen as a player, right? But maybe down the road they want to know more. And if they do, this is a way that I can leave something for them to go, you know, to continue on this part of this, you know, carry this on. You know, Greg Grinoff and I were together, like I said, 7 or 8 years ago. We got involved in a couple of things where we were trying to do a little documentary that we were trying to do on Van Halen 1 back 7, 8 years ago. Somebody had approached us and it didn't work out. And because of all the licensing and all that stuff. And so when Eddie passed, I knew that Van Halen wasn't going to take the reins on retrospective anything, right? So this is just not their way. And because I just told you about Eddie going back to the house, that was such a rare thing for Eddie to do. It wasn't even public, but he wasn't very retrospective. He was always moving forward, right? Tony and I talked about this last night. And since he was like that, I didn't think Van Halen was going to do anything like this. And I thought, well, here's a way that I can make my documentary that I wanted to make about Van Halen, but make it even deeper with way more hours of content, way more. These interviews go on, you know, 2 and 3 hours of just deep cuts. And that's what Tom did on this one that you guys are about to see. It's, you know, I told somebody today, I felt like putting a disclaimer that said only for the really sick Van Halen fans, because it is so deep. That I was watching it last night going, I hope somebody likes this, because it is so, like, you could not just be a casual fan.
Right.
And enjoy
Is there anything out on the sidewalk still?
Where at?
Los Lunas.
Not any. Well, you know, everybody leaves a pick or two here and there. That gets cleaned off, you know, here and there. Yeah, but everybody always leaves picks behind or something. There were some picks at the Van Halen stage this time. They had put the new plaques in since I've been there. You know, they did some corrections on the plaques, and they put those new ones that were the final ones in. So I went there and did that again. Went to the store where they bought the Destroyers, the Sound Chamber, which this time I got Tom sent me a photo of a sticker from the Sound Chamber on one of his guitars that he has that was from there. So I was able to put that in. That was kind of cool, you know.
Neat.
You know,
yeah.
Starting to see some things that, you know, Pasadena and those folks in Pasadena, there are a lot of them, but it's really hard to get connected with them and then get their trust that you're not going to just, you know, run and take their information and run. You know, it's more like I want to honor them, and they needed to trust me and that I was going to handle this the right way. And that's kind of why it took a few years for me to get those folks on. And it's
Debbie, welcome to Halenville. Right on.
Hey, Debbie.
Yeah, well,
I'm sure they all want to protect Ed's legacy, and you know,
sure, exactly, and
especially the ones that were close to him.
Yeah, exactly, and you know, Tom was telling me, you know, it was, you know, to get Tom, which had been, you know, I knew Tom from the early years documentary, right? So I knew he was a guy I wanted, but it took a while for me to get to Tom, you know, and get Tom on. But Tom told me, you know, and I think Tom had, and anybody that wanted to be on, they had to understand that I had my heart in the right place with this, that this was about legacy for me, for leaving this for all of us, for everyone, that their experiences of being left behind were there for the future. And that's what I want to do with them, is to partner with them to get these stories out. And while they're still around, you know, because Tom's brother passed since Eddie and Tom's brother passed since I started doing this. And
Wow.
So Tom just said, you know, I don't have forever. We all don't have forever. So he wanted to be able to talk about it, but he wanted to be careful about that. And and I definitely respect all those guys and the things that they saw and did. And that's one of the things you talked about, Tony, was that I edit them, right? Well, I try to clean it up and make it presentable. And if there's anything that we get off in the weeds that doesn't feel right, for Ed's legacy, I don't put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to say that I just don't want to go anywhere negative with it. And that's what I try to stay away from.
You've done a really great job on all these years of content you've been compiling. You have a section, if I'm not incorrect, Jeff, in your on your page. You can go down Van Halen rabbit holes all day long. You have a specific section on rabbit holes, but they're positive rabbit holes. They don't go negative.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the content is priceless. It's priceless, and it's unique, and it's genuine. One of the best Van Halen rides on YouTube would be the content of your channel for anyone who wants to get involved in the Van Halen world and learn maybe a little more. That's the place to be, bro.
Thank you, brother. It really goes back to a guy that I read his blog. The first guest on Van Halen Stories was a guy named from the studio up in Mike Simmons. He's the studio manager for equipment at Blackbird Studios in Nashville. Mike Simmons had written this beautiful blog about going to see Van Halen in 1978 by accident. His boss gave him tickets to see Black Sabbath. He has very little knowledge of Van Halen, just what they're playing on the radio. He wasn't really impressed with Running with the Devil because he was in the Black more and he loved technical stuff. So he hadn't heard Eddie technically yet. And he walks into the show in Nashville, the famous Nashville show where Ozzy doesn't show up, the one that we all know about. And Van Halen comes on and he gets his mind blown, right? And the way that he wrote this blog, I was just like, I had been doing those other interviews, right? But when he wrote this blog, I was like, dude, you have to come on and tell this story. And that's kind of how the whole thing started. It was because Mike Simmons, this blog he wrote was so beautiful and so rich, man. I just, it blew my mind. And you could probably find it. You could probably put in Mike Simmons blog, Van Halen. You could probably find it on the internet, just put it in the Google search and read it. But, great writers can just, like Greg Renoff, can just take you there. You know what I mean? And that's what he did, man. And that's why I was like, dude, you have to come on and tell it. So he did. He was the first guest that came on and he told the story. It was great. I still love that.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, a quick shout out. Ty Price is in the chat.
Hey, Ty.
Right on, Ty. It's good to see you, brother. Lenny Lou is in the chat.
Hey, Lenny.
Hey.
Hope Mary's doing okay, Lenny. We love you.
Ty has a question. He wants to know from Jeff, who was your favorite interview?
Oh, well, that's crazy, right? They're all
it's hard to do that.
They're free. I just said Mike Simmons was the one who started me. He got me started. So that and the second one with Damon Johnson, who was my childhood friend. He was a guy that I, for the guys that like the Brodricks and all them who grew up watching Eddie Van Halen, I had a guy locally that is still doing amazing stuff with guitar. He's the guitar player for Leonard Skinner now, Damon Johnson. But he was in a band called Brother Kane, and they went out on tour with Van Halen. So he was the second guest.
Oh, wow.
And his stories, since he became such a touring artist, it was really hard for me to talk to him about this. So I got a chance to really get deep to all those stories about Van Halen with him on the road with them. So that was a really, another favorite of mine. But
he's cool. He played with Alice Cooper too.
He did. Alice Cooper.
Oh, really?
That's right.
It was Alice Cooper for 6 or 7 years. He played with a band that was a spinoff. Well, first he played with Thin Lizzy after Alice Cooper. And then he had a spinoff band with Scott Gorham called Black Star Riders.
Right.
And then he ended up getting this call from Skinner to fill in for Rossington when he was sick. Of course, he passed.
Jeez.
So now he's the permanent guy with Skinner. So
That's quite the resume.
Wow.
Sid and Lizzie, who's that?
I tell you what, man, I can't. This guy, you have these people who you just don't know about, right? Or you might have heard a little bit.
He's played with everybody. He's like Kerry Kelly.
Yeah, right. Kerry Kelly, right? The guys like the working man musician guys that you just don't realize. Yeah, Joel Holstra. Yeah, I had Joel on too. These guys, man, they just kind of work, and they're so
hired guns.
They're so good, man. And Damon's story is, he has an interview on my musical journeys as well. It was one of my first ones of that. And we go deep into all the different experiences he's had, including a little bit of the Van Halen stuff. He tells some stories with Michael Anthony on the road and Eddie. He talks about you guys probably don't know this, but he said the 51, when he was on tour in 95 with Van Halen, the Magic Grail Marshall was actually in the rack behind the PVs. It was on the road. He had it worked on in 95, right? Around then. Well, apparently it's made its way back out on the road. I don't know whether it was in the mix or not, but Damon tells that story on a number of podcasts that he looked at Eddie and started to point at the Marshall, and Eddie just went like that because the PV guys were there. So
you guys knew each other as kids.
I met him when I just graduated high school when I met him the first time. And he was playing in a band and he played Van Halen. And I go, that's the Van Halen guy, right? And so I go talk to him. He ends up coming to the music store where I worked for, selling guitars. And he started playing Hot for Teacher. This is back before you had any internet. So he could play all this stuff, note for note before anybody had access to it. And so I got to know him as the Van Halen guy, and he became my Van Halen guy. And over the years, he's done all these different things that just blow my mind, including the Van Halen thing. Yeah. See you, Lewis.
See you.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Crazy story. It's just amazing some of the things that happened to some of these people. And Eddie Van Halen's life is one of those crazy stories that just blows your mind, right?
I know.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I did go to the whiskey, of course. You guys, of course, know all the history there with Van Halen. And Lori and I went to dinner. Yeah, that shirt. I love that shirt. And I insert a photo of the Van Halen video where you see the stage then and the band that was playing the night I was there.
I saw that.
Did you see it?
Yeah.
You can kind of see a little of the perspective of what it looked like then and now. And of course, Charles, you worked there, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, what were they called? Fast Times or something like that?
Yeah, Fast Times. 80s tribute.
Yeah, that's cool. They were pretty cool.
Yeah, nice. Good fun band, and they had some funny bits and stuff. And Lori and I go to dinner at a place called Miseli's up in Studio City, which is right by Ed's house. It's like down the hill. Mm-hmm. And it's an Italian restaurant there. We go to that every year. And they have singing waiters and waitresses. So we always yeah. So that's fun.
So there's a really nice little bite that you have on your channel right now. You just put it up. That actually, I believe that's where you are, and the waiters actually sing in that bite. It's priceless. Guys, got to check that out.
With Lori, yeah. With Lori.
Yeah,
that's awesome. She's a great person.
Jeff, you had you go out there often. Had you seen the mural before?
Yeah, well, when it was painted in 2020, right? Right? Is that right? It was during the pandemic. I didn't get out for NAMM that year that it was painted. So until I got back out, I think it's 21 or 22. It's 2023 actually, because I went out last year and did the Van Halen Trail, and when I did it, I went to the mural for the first time. Yeah, it was awesome. That's a beautiful thing.
That is. Do they still have that interactive?
I didn't try it. I didn't try it this time, but last time when I went,
in
my videos, I took the interactive video where you put your phone up, and I screen recorded that while it was doing all that stuff.
Oh,
you
cool.
know, all the lightning bolts and stuff, and I put it in the
Yeah.
video. So from last year, you can actually see that interactive clip.
That's probably the one I saw.
Yeah.
When I found out about it.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a really
Very
neat thing they
nice.
did there. And of course, before I left, I went to the Nashville mural up at the House of Blues Studios, which is the blue painted fence that they did. I'd never seen that, and I got by there. And Mike Simmons, who I told you guys about earlier, his door at the Big Blackbird Studio. Blackbird Studios is probably one of the biggest studios in the world as far as rental gear and has the biggest inventory. It's Martina McBride's husband's studio. Martina McBride and him own that studio. And Martina's daughter is an artist. And so John, their dad, asked Mike what he wanted on his door on his rental department. And he said he wanted it Van Halen-ized. So then John's daughter, Martina's daughter, painted that Van Halen mural on the, it's the Frankenstein design on the door.
Oh, fantastic.
Excellent.
It's awesome. Yeah, Mike is a great fan, man. He's a great dude. Love that guy.
Wow.
Nice.
That's outstanding.
Nice.
Yeah, but you guys asked about my favorite Van Halen Stories episode, you know? Probably George Lynch, because George Lynch was one, like I told George Lynch on the video, you and Eddie were my 1 and 2, you know, for me. So to have George Lynch be on was the dream come true, sort of, you know? That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. All right, so guys, let's stretch our legs.
All right.
Go to the fridge. We're gonna play a round of nearly impossible Van Halen trivia. That's what that sound means. We're going to cut it off, though. Yeah. So we're going to ask you a question about Van Halen. Very difficult. Very difficult. Supposed to be difficult. These guys have knowledge. Charles does not have knowledge of this, but
Nope.
Ed and Jeff do. All right. So for tonight, we're going to play for $1 million VH bucks. We'll slip in there.
Tax free.
Cool bill right
Tax
there.
free.
A lot of detail going on.
Don't let the IRS.
And on the back too, right?
Yeah.
We'll send you one of those. Plus we'll send you, and this is my very last one from the Balance tour.
Oh, last
I'm in a
one.
balance kind of mood if you hadn't had out already.
I guess so.
We're going to sling you this.
Nice.
Catch.
Nice.
But really, though, this will be in there too. What's it say? North America and amphitheaters 95, something like that.
Great tour.
All right. Thanks for playing along. Yeah, we do this every week. All right. Let me find it. All right. There it is. Okay. All right. We're going to play a little round of Name That Tune. How many notes is it going to take? We'll start with 5. No, I'm kidding. I'd like to do that, though. Maybe I will one day.
Yeah,
all right,
but
this is nearly impossible Van Halen trivia. If you are the winner here tonight, and good luck to you, I hope you win. If you hadn't won here before, there's a trivia winner's email down in the description. It says trivia winner's email. Email me your name and address if you win, and I'll mail you out this cool prize pack, including in it, I'll sling some of these handsome show guitar picks. It's got a lighter like that on it. On the back, you'll get one from Charles Greene says all roads on it. He's doing something like this or something on it. Ed's got a cool pick. Ed's doing this on it. But they got some cool picks, and I'll send you all of them. So if you, if you have one, you'll get that one too. That's the new Brendan Buttcheeks pick.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see Brendan on Saturday. All right. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck, you guys.
You're going to need it.
All right. That's a tough one.
All right.
Yeah.
Wipe your mouth. Take the last bite. Put the plate down. Time to type. All right. It's on. Good luck. And here we go. The first correct answer that we see is the winner. The winner. All right. Here it is. Eddie Anderson, longtime Van Halen head of security and David Lee Roth's personal bodyguard, actually co-wrote a David Lee Roth song. Name that too. Song title, please. And here they come. All right.
Good guesses.
Yes, fine guesses.
I had no clue.
I like ladies' night.
That's a great answer, Mikey.
Yeah.
Oh,
I see it.
You see it?
I think so.
High price in the house with
High price
with the score. A
little
luck.
A little luck.
Winner. All
well
right.
done, brother.
Yes, a little luck. So Eddie Anderson wrote A Little Luck, and A Little Luck appears on the David Lee Roth, Your Filthy Little Mouth.
Wow.
Which doesn't get the credit that it deserves. It's got some fine songs. She's My Machine's on that record.
It's a good one.
We jam out to that. It's on Greatest Hits too. But yes, A Little Luck is your answer, and Eddie Anderson had a hand in that. I'm surprised he didn't have more, Charles. You know,
he had influence on other things, I'm sure, that we haven't heard of. He had his hand in a lot.
Could be.
I know.
With his shorty shorts
For
on.
a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
He's seen things that
you can't talk about.
None of us really want to see. Let's just be honest.
Sure.
Well, we all saw that at least in 1984, if you were at a Van Halen show and you ran up on that Van Halen stage, you were going to see Eddie Anderson really quickly.
Close up.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, Ty says Kilgore played on that record. Terry Kilgore. I've been trying to get Terry Kilgore, and I had Terry Kilgore actually agree to be on, and he has kind of went cold on me. So I'm still trying. I'm working on it. I'm working on that one. I'd love to have
Nice.
that. Jeff, so getting back to your world and what you've got coming, your future's very bright.
Thanks.
As Van Halen fans and just people who maybe aren't necessarily call themselves fans, but people who know stuff, they just keep coming out of the woodwork and more stuff keeps opening up and little things. And as time goes on, that's the one thing personally that kind of eats at me is as time goes on, things become lost and fall by the wayside and just disappear completely.
Right.
And that's kind of the heartbreaking thing. And so, while my observation of you, Jeff, I'm going to make a little observation. The fact that you have accomplished what you've accomplished, and I look at it as a very unselfish thing. You've done this for all of us. I think that is very commendable. Well, I don't even have the words to really put it in because you're just getting going. What you're going to have, and I hope you live forever, my brother, 10, 15 years from now, the interviews you're going to have and the stuff that's going to come out. Maybe Alex will do a book. I wish Alex Van Halen would do a book.
Yeah, me too.
I hope he comes on your channel after hours, of course, and talks about it.
After hours.
But that's what excites me right now in this world that we're living in. And I, from all of us, just, thank you, Jeff. I mean, seriously.
Well, you guys,
the work that it takes to give us what you've given us is more than commendable. It's beyond that. I don't even have the words.
I appreciate that, guys. It is a lot of work, but it's like anything that you do that you love. It's very satisfying to watch the final product, and sometimes I get so into it, like you do a song or whatever, that at that moment you're kind of like, you don't really take it in as much. And then later when you watch it, you go, oh, wow, that was actually pretty good. That actually turned out good, And so I appreciate that. Appreciate those comments.
I know you get a lot of satisfaction out of the end result of the work you do. You don't do you don't do any live stuff. So everything you do is a very calculated product.
Jeff, it's got to be validation to and I was very happy and proud to see your stuff up on the Van Halen news desk this week.
Well,
brother, right on there. Let's.
I had, when I met, thanks, Jeff Hausman and I met. We actually met at the Smithsonian event, and that was like yesterday in 2015, right? And I had kind of known him a little bit before, and we were friends on Facebook. But Jeff had followed me through Facebook, and he kind of liked when I just wrote something. If I just wrote something about Van Halen, he just liked how I wrote. I'm a terrible. My grammar's the worst, and I'm a little dyslexic, so it kind of pisses me off when I read my stuff. Right, I'm always having to fix it. But he liked my sentiment, and so he asked me to do some contributing, to the news desk, and so some of the stories, like the Beato story that just came out, I put up there. That was one of my stories, to share that. The one when Beato interviewed Nuno, and Nuno just went off on this amazing discussion with him about Eddie. I wrote that story too. So anything that I can help push out into the world that's cool about Eddie, like these two young guys that he just interviewed that are kind of like the hot new young guitar players that were just so, I'm almost in tears talking about it, talking about Eddie, and they're like 27 and 30 something. And this is what I'm talking about, though, when I'm talking about leaving a legacy behind. Somebody has to do that. Van Halen's not going to do it because we know the politics inside of Van Halen.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to do anything. And if they came along tomorrow, and wanted to do something, I'd step out of their way. But they're not doing it. So somebody has to do it. And that's
Jeff, that night in DC at the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
You mentioned that last night. You saw a bunch of people there.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak about that night a little bit? A bunch of it. We've all seen that numerous times.
Yeah, that was
unbelievable. Well, it's been like what? It's been reviewed 10 million times. Literally 10 million times. We talked about it last night, but kind of like the day I got there, I got there really early, of course, and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what kind of number of fans would be allowed in this thing. I didn't know if it was going to be 1,000, it was going to be 100. So I get there. I'm in the line of maybe five or 10 people back from the door. I'm early in, and I see the line, but the line goes around the corner in the Smithsonian Hall. So I wasn't sure how many people exactly were going to be in. It turned out to be like maybe 200 fans, maybe less, maybe 150. We open the doors, we go in, and literally half of the little hall, which is about 300 seater, is full already.
Oh.
So half of the hall was already back halfway. So all the seats that were left for the fans were the last back half of that.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So what that made me realize was that there was only about 150 to 200 people allowed that were not in his family, work associates, other folks that were guests of the family, because they had a part before we were there, before we were let in, where they actually did the presentation with the guitar and all of that stuff for the Smithsonian. That was like a private thing. Chris Gill was in that, Chris and Brad, and I talked to them on my podcast about that night and what happened when they were in there, for this private thing. But what kind of hit me was like how lucky I was to be one of those few people that had a ticket, because it was really amazing how that happened. They announced it that morning. I happened to hit that, I think it was the news desk that morning early, and I ran out and tried to find these tickets. They were free. It took me a while to figure it out. I got a couple of tickets, and then about a week before I was supposed to go, they sent me a message saying they couldn't honor my tickets.
Oh,
wow.
No.
I was freaking out.
Well,
I had already bought my plane ticket to fly to DC. And then I hit the next email, and it's another email from them. And they said, "Oh, we made a mistake. You're still good to come."
Oh, man.
Heart attack. So anyway, I had no idea. So we get there, of course, we don't know if we're going to beat Eddie, because they never said that, of course, right? That was never said. But at the end of the thing, you guys hear it in the video where she goes, "Our guest will be meeting people out after the event in the foyer," or whatever. And so then we knew at the end, when you heard that on the video, that's when we knew Eddie Van Halen was going to be greeting us, meeting and greeting at the end. So,
Right.
So they had basically a receiving line, which I thought it was going to be more of a table thing where Eddie would be sitting at a table and you go up and say, "Hey." No, he did it like you would at a wedding, like you have the couple and everybody would line up and go through this receiving line. And he had, I think Matt was there, of course. And then I believe it was his lawyer and his sometimes acts as his bodyguard. I forget his name right off the top of my head. But anyway, we went through the receiving line. You got to get your picture made with him with your phone or whatever. And as I'm getting close, my phone's about to die.
Oh no.
And the guy in line doesn't even know how to shoot a photo with an iPhone. The guy that I'm going to let use my phone to take my picture, because my wife didn't get to go, so I was on my own, and he managed to pull it off, and I got my photo. But
Yeah, saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, Eddie,
Awesome.
Eddie was super. He was in a super good mood that night, and he was as warm as he could be, man. My friend that I told you about earlier, Damon, I tell this story once in a while. Damon told me, I asked Damon after he got off tour with him in '95, a couple of years later, when I finally got to ask him about this. I said, "What was Eddie like? Come on, tell me, And he said, "Jeff, he's just a regular guy like you and me. Just a regular dude. He's super cool, regular guy." And I turned to him, like a crazy Van Halen fan, and went, "Dude, he is not a regular guy. That is the guy that played guitar on Van Halen 1.
Right. That's it. That's
No
it.
way. What are you talking about? So anyway, when I met him at the Smithsonian, I got this thing that Eddie has, or he had, was this warmth that when he was in the right place, he had this amazing ability to be like just the guy that your buddy, like any of us. Like you could immediately, he would take that whole star thing and it would just disappear. He had this weird, you know, you hear people talk about Eddie like that, right? And he had this thing where he just disarmed you, you know, from that whole I'm a big star kind of thing.
That is awesome.
I remember seeing that in the videos whenever he's interviewed, you know, how he just always says, I'm just a jerk like the rest of you guys. You know what I mean? He always says stuff like that. And I thought it was so funny that when I met him, it just struck me like that. Like once you were in his presence, you kind of picked up on it. You know what I mean? And he was great.
Yeah, you were telling that story, and I was thinking about there's a video out there. I forget exactly when the video was shot. Mm-hmm. I think it was at NAMM. Lewis the Tone King. Good to see you, Lewis. If you see this,
that's a good one.
He's sitting there playing the new EVH guitar, and Eddie walks in. We've all seen that, and immediately he stopped. You know, Lewis stops playing immediately, and Eddie walks up to him and says, "Oh man, don't stop. Go right ahead." And he had that same thing going on that you were just talking about.
Yep, you saw it.
Yeah. Wonderful, man.
Sometimes they say you don't want to meet your heroes, you know.
Yeah, well, you know, it had its moments, and you know, we know he had a hard time at one point, but you know, this was that point where he kind of had that redemption, and he got this you know, he kind of finally opened himself up to letting people appreciate his career, which was so important. You know, he didn't really, you know, the Van Halens have always been like really protective about just not talking about themselves, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And I think that's kind of this thing that we see with them where they don't want to put all this retrospective stuff out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just sort of their style. And I get it, and I appreciate it, but I also think
very
that
much
it's
their style.
But I also think it's important that if they don't want to put out the detail about this history, that somebody has to. It's like if Mozart's friends could tell the story about Mozart, if they could tell you what he was like, wouldn't you want to know what he was like?
Yeah.
As a person, we know what he was like on the keyboard or as a composer, but you know, we would want to know, right?
I love the format and how they conducted the whole interview and everything, and they allowed fans to ask questions.
Yeah,
that was fantastic.
As Tony and I said, I was telling Tony last night, part of the question thing was, as we were in line, they handed us pieces of paper and had us write down our questions. Right?
Up on the jams.
So then they took the questions and they filtered them, obviously, to figure out which ones they wanted to ask him. And then you would be pulled to the microphones if you had the question that was going to be asked, and he would ask that question directly of him. So that's kind of how the questions at the end.
Okay.
Very cool.
But you guys know last year, this week, I did another continuation of the Smithsonian interview with a couple of other people that were there, and they were the ones that asked the questions.
Nice.
Wow.
So that's
nice.
Excellent.
There was one guy who asked a question, and then the very next question came from his son.
Yes. I remember that.
Yeah.
Right. And those guys were on. That's the son and father.
That's who you had.
That's who I had.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I had it was those two and another person. But then the year before that, I had the guy I was in line with. He was the guy I was in line with, like the guy right there. And the thing about the guy I was in line with is he'd been to 5150, and Eddie had given him a guitar and like hung out with him. He's a tennis pro.
So wait this is the same guy in line that you were wondering if he was going to F up your shot or not.
No, actually, it was the guy behind me. This is when we're waiting. This is when we're waiting to get in. He was the guy I was waiting with, and it turns out that he had been to 5150. He brought a guitar that Eddie gave him to have him sign it that night. You guys remember the video where Eddie says, "Keep playing, y'all keep playing," right?
Yeah.
Well, that video was shot by that guy.
Oh
wow!
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah, because he knew Wolfgang, and I saw Keith ask if I got to meet Matt or Wolfie. Wolfie wasn't around afterwards. He was down front, and Alex was there, of course. some people and our fans ran down real quickly when they first got in and like took pictures with Alex. There's a couple of people that did. Alex's son was there. I know that. Of course, Brad Tolinski and Chris Gill were there. And I'm trying to think who else, but no, I didn't get to meet Wolfie, but this guy I was in line with knew Wolfie from being there before. And so he went to Wolfie and said, "Can I meet up with your dad after this and get this signed?" And he did. He was able to get it signed.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Eddie actually gave him a Kramer too, one of his Kramers out of the studio.
Wow.
Back then. And this is a great story that he tells in my podcast about when he was invited to 5150. Now, this guy was a tennis pro, and he knew the producer that was working up at 5150. So he got invited, and he thought he was going to get invited, but he wasn't sure. But he took it. He said, "I wanted to take my son with me to meet Eddie because I had met him before. But my son, didn't know I was going to 5150, and I didn't know I was going really. And he didn't go with me to California on that trip. So my son didn't get to meet Eddie Van Halen. He said, I wish I could have taken my son."
Oh.
So he told Eddie when he was in the studio with Eddie that his son wasn't there. He's supposed to come with him. And they go, why didn't he come? And he said, because his aunt wanted to take him to space camp, and he chose space camp over coming out here. So he goes, "Give me your phone." Eddie goes, "Give me your phone."
Oh, no way.
He called him.
He called him up and said, "I hear you ditched me for space camp." He said, "This is Eddie Van Halen, And he left a message for his son, and his son thought it was his dad messing with him, but it was really Eddie Van Halen.
Nice.
Oh, that is priceless.
That is great.
So this is
That
the
is
guy,
just priceless.
the guy in line with me at the Smithsonian.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
That is
Cool.
just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Hey, quick shout out, Susan Wilcox. Welcome to Halenville.
Yeah, welcome,
And-
Susan.
That's my aunt.
That's
No.
your aunt.
Yeah, she
Right
came
on.
on. Yeah, my
Yeah.
aunt. She's
It's awesome.
Excellent.
very supportive of my music career and my entire life. Her and my mom would always play piano around the house, and where I got my first musical influence from them and my uncle, actually.
Nice.
Excellent. That is
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah,
Also, Michelle Wallace.
Yep.
I've been meaning to give her a quick shout out for at least an hour now. She has been saying some of the most wonderful things about you. Welcome to Halenville, Michelle. Right on.
She's one of my good friends, and it's helped me over the years with video projects and things. We used to shoot weddings back in the day. We did wedding videography for a while, and Michelle would be my other half on a lot of those shoots.
That is
Oh, that's
outstanding.
great.
Nice.
Right
She's
on.
super. It's helped me a lot over the years with my bands and been around all that, shoot videos. Some of the videos you'll see of the band, she was shooting those videos.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Welcome, ladies. Guys, I'm going to be right back. I got to get out of this coat. It's getting warm in here. It was
All right.
cold as heck earlier. I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
Well, while Tony's away, Ed, we get to say and ask whatever we want of Jeff.
Well,
Jeff,
have it.
so you interviewed George Lynch. It's a wonderful, wonderful interview. You guys need to check it out if you're a Lynch fan. You owe it to yourself.
I love that one.
Let's talk about it. Tell me a couple of things that George. I'm a big George fan. Just a couple of highlights if you can. While
Sure.
Tony's away, I know it's Halenville and all, but
Well, George went back ways with Eddie, obviously, back to Mammoth. Actually, he'd seen him, and I knew about his.
That far?
Yeah,
Yes.
I knew about his
Really?
connection back that far, and so it was like the perfect storm for me to get to be able to interview him. You mentioned earlier, Charles, those demos I was doing, and I ended up doing a demo for this modification tube thing that goes into the tube sockets of your amp to make it more distorted.
a Lynch box.
Well, it's like this little tube thing. Yeah, it's a Lynch mod. Lynch mod, it's called, I think.
Yeah.
And anyway, David, who runs that company, and I ended up talking. I don't know how he got connected initially, but David knew George, obviously through his relationship in this product. And so he mentioned having George on, and I was like, well, of course, And it took some time and some doing to figure out what was the best way to approach him, because I had George's phone number. He gave it to me, and George said it was cool. So I was texting him, but I wasn't really getting any response. And I know George is busy. He's on the road. I watch what he's doing. So I didn't take any thing from that. But then I figured out, he uses his publicist to do all of his scheduling. And so I was able to get to his publicist, and then it was like 2 days later, I'm on the phone.
Really?
Like,
Wow. That was quick.
So I'm like, that night before, I'm doing all my prep, trying to get everything together that I want to ask. And, they allotted like 20 minutes initially for that. And I thought, well, I'll take whatever, I can get. So it ended up being 40 minutes, and probably he would have went longer.
Whoa.
But I had to respect his time and everything. But I thought we got a lot covered in the.
Oh, it's a fantastic interview. And the thing about it is, I'm going to say this. If I ever got the opportunity to sit down with George Lynch, I have no idea what I would ask him, but I would ask him some of the craziest damn questions. I'd ask him about Dawn.
Yeah.
I'd ask him about Bobby. I'd ask him about everybody, especially Jeff. They used to do these Super 8. Weren't Super 8. They were originally Super 8 videos of him and Jeff. Really crummy quality. You used to be able to buy them. They sold them like out of the trunk of their car at shows and shit. Remember back in the day? I wish I had one of those right now.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Ed, you were thinking about it. George's history with Edward goes back well into the early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they only met like during Monsters of Rock or something. You know what I mean?
No. Their history.
Yeah.
See, they all knew each other. All those gunslingers, especially in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just a sea of knowledge back and forth between them.
I, of course, had to ask him if the Tiger Stripe guitar was inspired by the Frankenstein. And he pretty much said, yeah, I think so. Like that whole movement of graphic guitars was.
That's a great question, Jeff. God, that's
The thing is, Charles, for all of these interviews, the night or 2 nights before, I sit there and maybe even a week, I'll work on not only watching the content that they have been putting out through other channels. That'll help me kind of weed down to the questions that haven't been asked lately, and then of course the ones that I want to know, like him and Terry Kilgore saw Harvey Mandel together tap. That was something that has been talked about, but I wanted to know from him his experience with Eddie that night. And I had heard that through Greg that had happened. And there's a really funny part in the interview where I'm asking him all this, and Greg's giving me all these dates when he thought it was right. Actually, in the paper, I have all the documents, and I'm asking George Lynch, and he's like, "What is this? Some sort of interrogation?"
Yes.
I go, well, kind of, I just want to know, man, if that's what it was in 76.
That's just a good interview, Jeff.
Yeah.
Was it December 6th of 1976 or what?
I love it. Tony, you took off and we went down a George Lynch rabbit hole immediately, brother.
Of course.
I love George Lynch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All of us do.
One of my favorites.
Of course.
Yeah.
Definitely, like, I said to him about him and Eddie, because they did come up in the same thing, when I first saw Breaking the Chains, the video, I automatically kind of went, oh, there's another guy that kind of has that sound because back then we didn't really have that kind of a sound very easily. It wasn't something that starting guitar player really had a good facsimile of, it was hard to find. So I knew that's what I wanted, but I didn't know what it was. And when I saw Lynch, I realized I started to learn that it was a Marshall. It was this sound, and that's what I was going for. But it was a combination of seeing Eddie and then seeing George that kind of got me on the path of the sound that I was looking for. So,
the thing I loved, and they're my 2 favorite guitar players are George Lynch and Edward Van Halen.
Yeah,
I can say that quite honestly. The thing I love about it is neither one of them they're not similar. They're completely unique of one another. And anytime I talk about George long enough, I talk about how he's changed in the last 10 to 12 years, and he's kind of introverted, and his guitar playing has changed for the better. I think he's a better guitar player today than he was back in the 80s, which is a huge statement.
Wow.
But I think it's true.
Yeah, he's 69. He'll be 70.
Is he done, Jeff? He's saying that he's done. Lynch Mob's done.
Lynch Mob's done. Yeah, he said that in the interview. We discussed it. I don't think he's done. I just think that's done. I think that he said in the interview that he wanted to go out with a band that there wasn't any drama, that they could leave it on a high note, more or less. And he felt like this band would get him there. And that's kind of where he's at with that Lynch Mob. Now, I don't think he's done. I don't think he'll ever be done, but
he's playing guitar way too well right now to be done.
Yeah,
right.
Not a chance.
He's killing it. I mean, if you watch some of the videos from these shows, he not only does he look physically 45, he plays like that.
He was into bodybuilding back in the 80s.
I remember that period. Yeah. And he's still in great shape. He's still just physically.
Well, the 90s. I'm so sorry, not in the 80s. In the 90s, it's like,
yeah. But he definitely, he's way younger than he appeared. I mean, physically. So I think he's got a lot more to go. I mean, he's killing it. And Louis
Villarreal, it's good to see you, Louis, in the chat. Jeff Lynch is talking about a farewell tour. I'm sorry, Jeff Pilson is talking about a farewell tour.
Yeah, he is.
I heard something about that. I hope so. Yeah, I think he is one of the most dynamic rock and bass players.
Yeah, what's Mick and Jeff up to? Well, Jeff's still playing with Foreigner. They're going to the final tour, I think, right?
Yeah.
And then Mick's totally retired. His brother plays with Tesla, his younger brother, who I used to talk to a good bit. And he's a great he sounds just like George says, he sounds just like his brother when he plays drums. Wow. Yeah, I think he's been part of the In Machine stuff. Somebody was talking about that earlier. I did see the video that was out there that George had put out recently. Oh, Michelle saying I need to show you my tattoo.
Oh, jeez.
Thank you, Michelle.
Oh, sweet.
There you go.
Nice.
Oh, that's really nice, bro.
Right on.
I've had that for a while, 10 or 15 years.
Cool.
Is that kind of like this one, like the patch? Does it look like a patch?
It's the second.
Oh, okay.
The second album version with the 3 wings. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I've had that for a while. The funny story is I went to that first reunion show with David Lee Roth in 2007, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And I felt like it was going to be, who knew how long it was going to last? Like, because Tony and I were talking about this. Tony went. And I was afraid it wouldn't last a week. so I went on up to North Carolina to see that at Bobcat Arena at the time. And, man, it was insane. But I was in the street before the show, and I ran into a guy, and he had a Van Halen necklace on. And we were talking about the necklace and whatever. And he goes, and he whips up his sleeve and shows me his Van Halen tattoo, right?
Nice.
Okay, well, it was the Sammy Hagar era version, right? But it was in exactly these colors.
Oh, wow.
But he didn't know I had this. So I picked up my sleeve.
Nice.
And we had side by side in the same color, but at different logos.
That's awesome.
Priceless, dude.
Right?
That's
we took
awesome.
a picture of that. We did take a picture, too, of that. That's funny. Van Halen people, man, we're crazy. We like that stuff.
2007 worked out fine.
Yeah, I thought, Roth had a great
it was
tour.
I was impressed.
Eddie was up and down. He had that time he was off for a little while too. When he came back, he was better. I saw him in 2008, and from then on, he was pretty much good.
Yeah.
I think Roth, his melodies were on that tour. He didn't try to vary too much. He stayed very.
He sang well in 2007.
I want to say he sang almost as well as he did at any time in his career. And but then it went kind of south in 2012 and 2015. And I don't know if that was a vocal thing, a vocal problem, or just him wanting to do whatever he wanted to do.
I think maybe a little of both. He just, he had issues and just accepted it.
Yeah, something. I don't know why it was different,
That's
but
why they kept it in the live album, I think, too.
Yeah, I'm there, no matter what, because of Eddie Van Halen.
Right.
There you go.
Right. You gotta.
And I tell you that 15 show I saw was the first time I'd ever seen him outside, and the mix was incredible. The guitar sounded unbelievable. That was the best his guitar had ever sounded to me in the tour, because we're outside probably, but that particular night, man.
Where at, Jeff?
We were out in Birmingham at an outdoor arena called Oak Mountain Amphitheater. Okay. And Roth was, of course, what he was in 15 at that point. But, man, the guitar was so good that I was just transfixed by Eddie in that particular moment. And thank God I saw it, because, we didn't know that was really that much
right.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, it was brutal to think that, only 5 years later after I saw him at the Smithsonian in February. And then I saw him in September of 15 that year, those 2 times. And then 5 years later, he's gone,
Yeah.
Impossible to really, everybody I talked to says they can't still accept that he's gone.
Yeah.
Right.
It's because it's like he's not.
Well, he's not really. Not for us. We he's here always.
Yeah,
with us.
Of course.
He's his memory and all the things that he did and the impact he had. We carry that within us every day. And when we go out and, I go chase down a spot in Pasadena, it's because he made me do that.
Well, Jeff, listen, I'm going to say it just like this for everyone. You're crazy, okay? You're absolutely crazy. And we love it.
Thanks.
We absolutely love it. Don't ever change, bro.
Yeah, Jeff. Thanks for carrying the band.
Yeah, we love you, man.
Thank you. Love you guys too. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate what you guys do here. I follow you guys on here.
Thank you.
Like I said, I watch it post all the time when I get home from whatever show I'm at. I go online and watch the podcast, and I can't interact with you because I'm of course not live, but I do watch you guys.
Yeah. What's upcoming on your channel, Jeff?
Well, first is this thing I'm putting out probably in the next 2 days is the new Van Halen Stories number 37 with Tom Broderick, which is pretty epic. But I've got a huge list of people that I've talked to that we haven't finalized. I've talked to Jude Gold. Do you remember Jude Gold? He was the writer for Guitar Player for years and years. He works with Starship now. He's the guitar player.
Oh, wow.
And that's where I've heard of him from.
Yeah, Jude Gold. Yeah. If you look back at any Guitar Player magazines, he wrote half the articles on Eddie. He was the guy. The final issue of Guitar Player that Matt Blackett wrote most of or a number of things in there. Jude was part of that.
Excellent.
So Jude is he wants to play is what he told me. So if we have him on, he's going to have a guitar on, and we're going to do some of that.
Oh, that's great.
So that's fun, Sweet. And then I've got a huge list of people, like on the top of the list. This is going to blow y'all's minds if it ever happened. It would just, I would be probably in tears. But I'd love to have Tony Iommi, and I'd love to have Brian May.
Oh,
I bet you would.
Wow.
Wouldn't you love to see that?
That would be great.
I would just freak out on that. I got to work on it. It's a lot of behind the scenes.
Adam
PR
Roach in the house. What's
hey,
up,
Adam?
It's a lot of work, but we'll see.
Yeah.
What's up, Papa Blue?
Man, I hope it happens for you, Jeff. I wish you. I hope you get everybody that you want to have come on your show.
We'll be tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely, we will.
My goodness.
We dig your stuff. And you guys, Jeff's link is down below to his YouTube. And, yeah, a mountain of coolness there. That latest stuff is there. You'll see it at the top. Van Halen Gold over there, Jeff. Thanks for being here, dude.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah.
I wonder how many minutes it would take if you got Brian or you got Tony on your show before you asked them an Eddie Van Halen question.
Oh, no, this is why they would come on, because, look, the reason that anybody comes on this show of mine is because Eddie Van Halen was so compelling, right? He was their buddy. He was their friend. Steve Stevens. He didn't even make me go through any PR. He just said, "Yeah, I'll do it." Phil X was the same way. Just boom.
He's a cool guy.
They just love Ed, and they want to talk about Ed, and I want to help them talk about Ed. I want to talk with them about Ed. And so for somebody like Brian May, who was so close to Ed, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't want to, or Tony, it just has to be like we were talking about. They have to feel like it's a safe space for them to do that, and that it's okay.
Yeah.
Won't go in any negative or wrong direction.
History has left its mark on their perception of Edward Van Halen. And they said some of the nicest things about that man. Yeah. As intimidating as it was for guitar players in that day to experience him and then have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. I remember a story about Steve Lukather. He was all proud of a track they had just laid down, and somebody put Eruption on, and it just messed his whole world up in real time. Right. And the fact that Brian May, Steve Lukather, Tony Iommi could say such gracious things and become so friendly and so tight with Edward just goes to show you that it's a big world and guitar players come in every shape and size. I would love to hear those interviews.
Yeah. I just think that these guys were such a big part of Eddie Van Halen's life and of Eddie Van Halen. Yeah. Eddie Van Halen loved Tony and he loved Brian, and he was influenced by both of them. There's a discussion, I think, in the latest Van Halen stories where Eddie was asking Tom about Queen because they were trying to cover some songs, and he was like, "Is there anything on this album that we could cover?" He was asking Tom this stuff. Wow. See, Tom used to ride in the blue van that you guys know about, I guess, the little blue van that Eddie had. Mm-hmm. Tom and Eddie would ride to gigs, and when they did, Tom took it upon himself to make mixtapes to try to get Eddie some music to listen to that could inspire him.
Hey, Lou, good to see you.
Oh, wow.
Man.
So that's what some of the discussions we have, on this thing. It's about these times he was with Ed on his own in the van going to these gigs. You guys know the paper route, how you always talk about paying for the drums with the paper route.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, Tom Broderick's brother and Eddie used to work for the same paper route guy.
Whoa.
So they when they got back together to talk, the paper routes came up.
Goodness, man.
It's good stuff, man. You guys are gonna love this one. It's so deep, man. It's like really deep. I'm really cool. I was really happy and privileged to get Tom. I mean, Tom might not be a George Lynch celebrity type interview, but Tom is one of the most important guests I think I've ever had. Somebody that was, as far as what I'm looking for to expose to the world. I want people to know the guy that I just told you about at the Smithsonian that was so disarming, who was the beautiful person that he was. Sometimes that could sit down with you, and like my buddy that I grew up with said, the next thing I know, I'm sitting with Eddie Van Halen. We're just talking like two old friends.
That's awesome.
That's incredible.
And I'm thinking in my head, oh my God, still kind of like out of body, but
So Tom is a treasure trove then of information.
My God, dude. It's about an hour and a half.
Wow.
Jeff, I remembered there was a question in the chat. It's been a while. Randy Price asked it. Randy, I love you, brother. Smithsonian.
Yeah.
When Eddie was tapping, what was the volume like?
It wasn't loud.
It wasn't. So it wasn't like concert volume or anything like that?
No, he had it pretty low. Okay. They didn't have it mic'd up or anything, so it was all coming off the stage.
I got you.
And it was cool though, because he's really a good conversationalist. Like I don't think he always said he was so shy. It was hard for him to do that. But at that point and that night with that lady that he was with, she had interviewed him before. I forgot her name, but she was on CNN, I think, at one point, and then interviewed him at the studio. So he'd been around her a little bit. So, and I think they kind of handpicked who they wanted, because I think Brad, I believe Brad said this in his interview, that Brad was supposed to be the person you interviewed him, Brad Tolinsky. You know, he was supposed to be the one that day.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, they chose her to do it. Probably because she had been to the house, and I don't know if they wanted that dynamic or how they wanted it, but that's what happened. And he helped prepare a lot of her questions. So Brad was behind a lot of that too, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
But you know, Brad went back with Eddie for a long time.
Sure.
And Chris, of course.
That night theme was what it's like to be an American.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe that had something to do with it also.
Yeah, you know, his story about the immigrant story is an amazing story. You know, to think.
Well, I meant her.
Yeah, that too. And if you think about when he went to America, there's also in the Van Halen Trail from last year, there's one of the original homes that they came to before Los Lunas that I went to, that Greg had in his book. I went to that location. It was a fairly large house, but it was, you know, multiplex. So there was only a small area where they lived in this one little house, or this house in a small area. And it's on the vlog. So, you know, they did work their way to that Los Lunas location for a few years before they could even do that. They were living in multiple families and that kind of thing. So, yeah. And, you know, Eddie's always talked about how his dad had trouble getting work, you know, when he first got here, and how hard that was, and how he had to work that job at the hospital in the cafeteria and as a janitor and walk like 3 miles each way, I think it was, to go to work. So, yeah, they had a tough start. And it was that interview at the Smithsonian, you know, reflected back a lot about that and about his childhood and some of the questions that were asked. You know, it was pretty cool.
That interview kind of reminded me of the interviews that they had with Dave, Eddie, and Wolfie and Alex when they were sitting on the stools and, you know, playing acoustic music, and they were asking questions, and Dave was kind of narrating, and Eddie, you know, they told a lot of good stories on that one too, and it kind of reminded me of that when the Smithsonian thing came out.
Yeah, it's too bad they didn't do more of those retrospectives.
Those were awesome,
right? Those were great when they sat down and talked about it.
I loved it. I ate that up.
When you can get David Lee Roth to actually focus on something, and deliver.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
If you listen to Eddie in these interviews with, I think it was Steve Rosen, maybe it was Giles Obrecht. Eddie says, you know, we just send Dave in, and Dave just dazzles them. And he says, and then when he walks out, they don't even know what he said.
I know.
They don't know what hit him.
Right. Which they were happy to do.
One of the kids that asked the question, that was a very, very young kid that asked what it was like going to school on the opening day of school.
Oh yeah,
or something like that. Yeah.
The poor Ed, man.
He was great.
They couldn't speak the language, you know, at all.
Right.
So they were really struggling, and Alex talks about that in some of the interviews too, that they only knew like 3 words or something.
Wow.
Right.
How terrifying.
Right. You come all the way to this country, and then you're just dropped in this new situation with a huge language barrier, you know, and And you know, I was saying this, I was writing this thing the other day, and I didn't really finish it, but I was kind of reflecting on how Eddie Van Halen became Eddie Van Halen, because he was because of this situation, sort of isolated. You know, he didn't have a lot of friends except his brother. And the guitar came along and probably filled that gap, you know, and he had this thing, right? And then he loved it. And then he spent so much time with it. And then, you know, we know the stories, right? And this kind of builds up to this thing where he becomes this incredible, you know, icon of rock.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's sort of still that little guy that's in his room. He's still a little shy, and he comes out into this world where he has to kind of live up to this now. You know, it's a pretty tall tale. You know, you guys have probably got into Noel Monk's book a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Right?
A little bit.
Bible.
Right, for you. Right?
He's one of my favorite characters. He is the glue that held Van Halen together the entire time he was the manager.
Yeah. So
they could have imploded at any time.
So to build on what you're saying is this first tour where Eddie goes out to Europe and they're in Paris. You've read this. Eddie gets homesick and he wants to go home. You know, he's as far as I could tell, and we know this because of why he drank and what happened. He was a very sensitive dude who was just, this was not his thing, really. I mean, the musician part was his thing, but then he gets thrown into this rock star thing. And he would say that all the time. I'm not a rock star. What is a rock star? That whole thing he kept on and on about. And so now he's in Europe on this tour and he wants to go home. And Noel's telling him, like, look, I thought you wanted to take care of your parents and give them a better life. And that's why you're here. And that's how he rationalized Eddie out of this funk he was in to get him back on the program. And it just shows the sensitivity of Eddie and this person he was. But there's also the talk I had with Jazz Obrecht where he said Eddie Van Halen's the most sensitive man probably the most sensitive man I ever met. And he probably got into the wrong line of work because he was so sensitive. That's what he said.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what he said. So, you know, you have to kind of realize that Eddie Van Halen, you know, and all the things that were dark about that happened to him happened probably because of the anxiety and the pressure and all of a sudden becoming this icon that he maybe was at odds with at times. You know what I mean?
I'm sure a lot, maybe a whole lot at first. He probably never learned to totally deal with it, you know, understand it at best, but you know, it wasn't him. He didn't want nothing to do with that aspect.
Yet Roth was all about that aspect.
Right.
There's a story of that Steve Stevens told on my podcast about Roth in New York City. He meets him, you know, Roth courted Steve Stevens for Eat 'Em and Smile for the band. So he went to New York to meet him, and he got Roth a private booth in the back of this restaurant because at this time, this is 86 or 85, Roth's the biggest superstar in the world. And so he figures you want to get a private booth. And when he tells Roth that he got him, you know, you want me to get you a private booth, Roth says, no, I want to sit out front in the middle of it and on the front of the building so everybody can see me. He said he ate it up, right? And then Roth walked back to his hotel just like nothing, you know. That's something that Roth was just comfortable with, you know, but Eddie was a totally different guy, as we know. Yeah. And that's kind of the friction point with these two guys, you know. They didn't
in a lot of ways it was, but you needed both.
Sure you did.
It was vital. You needed both. And
absolutely.
There was, you know, when you have both, of course, there's going to be a little, but
sure. There's friction.
You needed the rock star and you needed the excellence.
But Eddie became such a, you know, a beautiful rock star. He was a inspiration to everybody. You know, the way that he smiled. That's what got me into music. Really, I mean, I think about what he played in that video on Unchained, but I also think about how he came across to me, like how much fun it looked, like how much fun he was having, how much he loved what he was doing. That thing that he gave to the world, we all picked up on that thing, right? That thing that he emoted on stage.
Yeah.
He didn't have to say a word. All he had to do is look at you.
Yeah.
Right.
The enthusiasm, the smile, the grin.
Smile.
Oh, Jesus.
The photo I took at the Smithsonian when he's doing the smile, right? That's like, oh my God, that's the thing, you know, it just his face. Just that's what connected with all of us, I think, is the way that he came across. And he may not have wanted to be so well known or in that situation, but what he gave to the world, you know, I think he really realized later how important that inspiration was to the rest of us, you know, even though it was sometimes I think a burden for him, but you know, in 15, it seemed like he was loving life again. And 12, he looked like he was good. And so he had a great, in that 15 at the Smithsonian, man, it was just, I was the luckiest can be to be there at that thing at that time when he was that good.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He was absolutely good. I mean, it was
I'm glad you were there, bro. That's awesome.
It was like almost divine intervention that happened. It was like, that's how lucky I was to get there. And
that is so cool, Jeff.
Because I had tried, man. I had been a foot away from him, and I tried to shake his hand, but I did actually. I was 21 or 20. It was in 1991 at the NAMM show. They did the jam with Steve Morris and Albert Lee and Eddie. I happened to be in the front row because my girlfriend drugged me up there. And he walks right in front of me, and he stands there, and he's shaking everybody's hands, right? And I'm so starstruck at this moment that and I'm not aggressive. I wasn't aggressive. I was sort of like him, a little shy. I wasn't able to shake his hand, and I always kind of regretted it.
Oh shit!
I had my moment to shake his hand and say thanks, and then I blew it. And so 2015 made up. When I walked up to him in 2015, I was like, "You are going to introduce yourself, and you're going to tell this man thanks. That's what nothing. Whatever else is, that's the thing you're going to do." And that's what I did.
Awesome.
I said, "Hey, Eddie, I'm Jeff. Man, thanks for all you did. I've been waiting for 30 years to tell you this. And that I just been wanting to tell you thanks for real." Nice. And that was the common theme. You saw that with everybody of the fan group there that day. All of them had been like us, just waiting for the moment where they could just tell him something simple.
Yeah.
Just express that.
So
Wow.
what was the process of whose question got chosen?
They just basically, I think they took that to Matt and Eddie. I'm not sure exactly how that was chosen. They probably just wanted to kind of filter it down because, of course, they didn't want to get off on some gear question or some drama question, those kind of questions. So
as you walked in, they asked you to write a question in case? Beforehand.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they had us all do it while we were waiting. And then they collected it all. And then they went in there with Ed, probably, and probably Matt, and they may have gone through them and kind of just picked out ones that stuck out. Like the one, to me, the one that always comes to mind is when they ask him if he could jam with any other musician, alive or dead. Who would you?
Oh man, that was
And he kind of looks out in the audience and sort of, as I was saying yesterday, wistfully looks like he's looking for his father, and he says, "I'd like to jam with my dad again."
Wow.
Yeah, that relationship he had with his father was really close, and if you listen to those interviews with those Jaws Obrecht and also Rosen interviews, or you read them, he goes deep with his brother and his father that way. You see that, and you hear that. You hear him say it over and over and over again.
So
and he wants to acknowledge him.
So Jeff, everything that we see, and it's not quite an hour long, I think, on YouTube of that evening. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that's edited out that we don't see? No, it's all live. There's not a thing. Nothing changed. It's all there. Yep. Nice. So cool to be there.
Wow.
To see it and watch it now. All these years later, we'll be able to just pop it up anytime and watch it. So great. Yeah. I love it. We've all watched it.
Sorry, guys. My dog is barking.
Times. Maybe not as much as Live Without a Net, but
right.
Yeah.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, it was beautiful, and it was definitely. I want to say, Brad and Chris and I were talking about it. We all kind of felt like Eddie Van Halen must have had a million nights in his life that were the greatest night of his life. He must have had a million of those experiences that were just incredible. But that had to be up there, And I don't know if I haven't really said this. I told Tony last night. But at some point, I ran across one of the nurses that was involved with Eddie and later in his life there. And that person hasn't decided to come on yet. We've talked about it, but he was in the house, and there's photos of him and his son and his wife. You guys have maybe seen it. It's in Eddie's office. They've got the Frankenstein down, and his young son's there with him. And he's still close with Wolfgang, so he wanted to kind of be, careful. And so anyway, up on the wall behind this pictures of this gentleman, you see a picture of Eddie Van Halen with his brother. And that is at the Smithsonian on the wall behind him. So in his office, there's a photo of him and his brother at the Smithsonian that night. And so kind of gives you a little bit of a feeling for how much impact that night had on him and how important it was. Because I think he looked at it like, I'm being recognized for my cultural contributions, not the rock star piece.
Right.
My music.
Right. And I think that was the big thing for him, because he did not do these things historically at all.
No. I think he was a big fan of Les Paul, right? He loved Les, and they had a relationship. And if you ever watch, I would recommend everybody on here look up Chasing Sound. Look it up on YouTube. Chasing Sound, Les Paul. His documentary, it kind of parallels Eddie's influence in his life, the way that he was able to develop certain things in the music business and products and all the things that came from Eddie Van Halen. He had spawned so much stuff. Well, before him was Les Paul, and very much the same over that culture and those years. Les Paul had the same impact, and that they were friends is such an amazing story, because they really, like Les said, it's you and me, Eddie, that know how to do these things. They really were like two of the guys that spawned so much. Like Les Paul was the multi-track recording was him. The Echoplex, the loopers you hear today, a lot of the things you hear today were LesUl originally. And of course,
yes, good to see you, dude.
A lot of things that Eddie did are echoing through the music business still.
Right, and you'll never hear that about Leo Fender.
No, that's true. There's certain guys that were over those years that had big contributions, but didn't have it multifaceted that way that Les Paul did. Yeah, and Eddie Van Halen. See, people, I don't think that your average person that listens to Jump understands the depth at which Eddie Van Halen affected the music business. Not just the songs, but everything else that's involved. Yeah. And at every level of it, he's part of it. He echoed so hard that like you were talking about Brian May or Tony. He echoed so hard across all of this stuff that those guys were still in awe of Eddie Van Halen, and what he was able to do and how he did it as such a quiet kind of, I'm not a big deal.
Aw shucks.
Aw shucks, right. how he had so much impact with, so little ego,
Right.
Sure. I mean, he
is amazing.
He had to do, he had to deal with some things in his life, but man, what he left behind is that's what I'm trying to uncover, is that part of him, that I will talk about the gear. I will talk about the speakers and the whatever, but I also want you guys to, and the future to know who this guy was and how he had this impact about his entire life. Was like, just imagine Mozart. If Mozart would have redesigned the piano to a degree that every piano in the world now had a fingerprint of Mozart on it still, because he designed it, right? Well, in 300 years, that's going to be the case. Eddie Van Halen's going to have that kind of impact. It's major, but people don't look at it like that right now, but they will.
They sure will.
Oh, yeah.
They do in a lot of ways, though.
Sure they do.
In a lot of ways.
Sure they do. But does the mass public know that? I think if you watch Chasing Sound, you get a feel for how little the mass public knows about Les Paul, how little that we knew. If you haven't watched it, you're going to be surprised how little you knew about this guy. It was an amazing dude, and that's one of the greatest documentaries that Eddie Van Halen should have one like this. It really shows you the impact that Les Paul had.
Yeah, well, even nowadays, though, and I think it'll be the way of it, every kid who plugs a guitar in, whether they know any Van Halen songs or not, they all know who Eddie Van Halen is.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, his influence is going to carry on, and it's so refreshing to see the younger generation just appreciate that and just keep going with it and just going to EVH Con,
right. You saw that,
Louis and this kid Dallas, unbelievable,
Right.
It just and then there was a kid on the keyboards, playing keyboards. He all he wanted to play was Van Halen stuff, and it's just I loved it. I loved it.
It's amazing, right? There's a video that I saw again last night of these two young teenagers. It's been maybe about 6 years ago now, and their father got into this idea of showing them videos of the stuff he loved and having them react to the videos. Right?
Oh, I love watching those.
Right. Okay. Well, these two young kids, they're two young teenagers, about the age I was when I saw Unchained. Right. And he shows them the Unchained video.
Are they like in Carolina up here near me?
I think so.
Yep.
You guys have seen it, right?
Yeah, they're awesome.
And they react.
I've seen one with a father and a daughter.
Oh, have you? Okay.
Yep.
This is a brother and sister, and they're young kids, and they just the way that when they watch that and they respond to that video, it just takes me back to like, oh my God, that's me. This is me at 13.
Yeah.
Being able to see their response, because I didn't know anything about guitar really that much when I watched it. So this was like all new to me, and to see them experience that video was like, wow, okay, cool.
You just loved what you heard. You're like, what is this?
Right?
Yeah.
Just to see it through their untrained and 30 years of all the stuff I have in my head, to see it back to where it was when I started was really cool.
I know.
Yeah, to watch those kids love it.
I got to take my daughters to a Van Halen concert, and that is the best thing in the world. I got to tell you.
Excellent.
I got to tell you, to see my twin daughters at 11 years old, just like, holy crap, what's this all about,
Right. How do you, did like for us, we've seen it so many times. We know the whole drill, right? But for them, it's like, what did they say when they were there?
They were just awestruck. They were soaking it all in. And I said, and then when Eddie's solo came up, I said, watch this. Wait till you hear this, And they were just, and now obviously they're fans of hard rock and stuff like that, and they go to concerts all the time, and they I like to think I had a part of that.
Yes, you did.
That's just good parenting, Ed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Yeah, the girl that I play with, Taylor, she's 28, and her parents brought her up on all classic stuff, and because they did, she's able to cover with me anything from Johnny Cash to Van Halen. Right, because they gave her all this background. She's so diverse in her musical background, but very young, and I see that a lot more. It seems like I see more of that. I don't know whether it's because it's just social media that I see it, but it seems like our generation has shared our music more with our children than maybe my parents did with me. Although I do remember what they were listening to. It just seems like for some reason the 80s stuff really impacts the kids. The Journey or whatever it is that they're watching.
That's an interesting thought right there, Jeff.
Yeah. It's weird how it connects with them too in a way that it connected with us. Which normally for like I said, for my parents' generation, when I would go back and watch what they liked, Beach Boys or whatever, it was cool. But it wasn't like Van Halen was to me. And I'd see that like with your daughters, they get it. Or my sister's kids, they love Kiss. They've seen Kiss multiple times. They grew up on it.
What's not to love?
Right. Just amazing stuff. I mean, it's just so cool to see that these things will carry on, and these shows like you guys do and help people have a place to go and engage about it, and talk about whatever they want to talk about. The podcast thing has been really this weird anomaly that's come along over the last, 5 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. It's become such a thing. And I guess when I started doing that, I thought it was cool, but it wasn't like the thing yet.
Right. It went from mailing lists to bulletin boards to, all these things, and then it just keeps evolving, with technology, which is fantastic. I mean, I never thought as a youngster that I'd be on a show and talking about Van Halen every week, which
Right.
I love to do. You know,
Isn't that cool?
it's
So
cool.
I mean,
Cool.
you know, just remember when we didn't. First of all, we didn't have a cell phone that we could. If we did, it was this big, right? It's a huge, right?
If you
And
could
then-
afford it.
Right. And then remember, we dreamed that one day we could do like Captain Kirk and look at our phone and be able to see that person on the other side.
Yeah.
And now I can see all you guys all over the world, you know, and at any moment.
Dick Tracy with the watch.
It's so crazy, right? It's just, it's amazing that technology has brought us to the point where we can just have these conversations from all over the world together. It's so wild.
Right.
Right. Yeah, it was, you know, the Eddie Van Halen thing. You know, I always thought it would be really cool that if he ever got involved in this a little bit more. I think he did surf a little from what I know.
Wolfie was
Helping
steering
him.
him toward, yeah.
I would help you with that stuff. But yeah, I had a rare opportunity. I don't really talk about it much, but back in 2008, you know, you guys remember it was a Van Halen page, vanhalen.com or eddievanhalen.com. Andre was the moderator. I was one of the people on the chat. And I had posted a video of me playing some Van Halen stuff with a Van Halen guitar. And it had gotten seen by Eddie Van Halen's staff via that site. But I didn't know that.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
So I was in contact with them, and I mentioned the video to this person that was working in their office, and they said, "We've already seen your video," and I was like, "What?" And they said, "Yeah, we want you to send Matt Bruck out a copy of it so he can take a look at it with Eddie," and I was like, "What?"
I bet that just floored you. You were like floored.
Yeah, I was like, "Okay, am I getting in trouble?" I didn't know.
Yeah, right. Copyright or something.
Did I do something wrong? Yeah. And so anyway, I sent out the video, and they were going to use it for. This is a while back when he had a site where he was posting some things, and they were going to use it for a PR piece for the EVH thing, and it turned out that it didn't work out. He ended up disbanding that particular project, but he did see the video. He did watch me play.
That's awesome.
Because I kept going. She was like my intermediary between her and Matt and Eddie. And she said, yeah, when he got back, this is when he went to Hawaii after one of the tours. After that tour, 07, 08, he went to Hawaii. I don't know if he got engaged to Janie at that point. He might have. That might have been when it was. But he was gone when I was talking to her. And then he came back. And when he came back, I asked her, did he ever see it? Because I sent it out there. And she said, yeah, he watched it. He liked it.
That's cool.
I thought that was
That's
pretty
excellent.
I remember in the mid-'90s when I had a Van Halen fan site, and I had to sign an agreement with ELVH.
Did you? Yes. Yeah. I was dealing with them. Yeah, I was dealing with them too.
That was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. They, that guy, his lawyer that I told you about, it's at the Smithsonian, is standing next to him. If you ever see it in the videos or whatever, him to the right. That's his lawyer, the one that you would have signed the contract with.
Yep.
But yeah, so I had a little bit of a
couldn't sell guitars, couldn't all that stuff.
Yeah, you had to be real careful with that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But it it was kind of a cool thing that happened. It was freaky, like how did this happen? But it was just from being on that site, like you guys, we were talking about message boards and things like that, where you're out there and you were putting stuff up. And did he ever see anything? Well, the answer is yes.
That's cool.
Have you guys ever heard the story about the toilet seat story?
Oh, somebody sent him a striped toilet seat or whatever, and he put it in the 5150 studio?
Yeah, that's the end of the story.
Okay.
Okay, so the beginning of the story is this guy was selling it on eBay at the time.
That's right.
And Eddie Van Halen's, it was striped, right? So they got in touch with him and told him he couldn't do it. Or whatever, but they bought the last one from him and he put it in 5150.
Excellent.
I mean, that's the story. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Sounds true, though. Of course, and then going into the Guitar Center, there's one at Guitar Center in Sherman Oaks that I've seen on a lot of the forums where he goes in and this kid's buying a microphone. He doesn't know which one to buy. And they ask Eddie, and the kid doesn't know who he is. And Eddie buys him a 58 and a 57 and says, you know, these are the mics. He actually buys them for him too.
Oh, wow.
So the kid doesn't know the guy. I mean, he doesn't really know Eddie. Well, so he comes back the next day and trades one of them in.
Oh, no.
Yeah. That's one of the stories from Sherman Oaks. There's a lot of stories from Sherman Oaks. It's also in the videos that we were talking about, the trail videos. I go to Guitar Center Sherman Oaks, which is, if you've heard the story about Eddie taking his Lamborghini down there to get some strings from Steve Rosen, that's the Guitar Center that he went to with Eddie and the Lamborghini. And this is where he would regularly shop because it was close to his house. It was just a couple miles away. So that's when
he had a black one, right?
Yeah, a black one. Yeah. And unfortunately, we don't know where it is. I've tried to find out. Actually, yeah, the guy who had the Miura down in Florida, John is his name. They indicated to me that they were looking for it. So we will see if we ever see it again. But it's out. I heard it would
be worth so much money,
right?
Millions.
I mean, if it wasn't Eddie's, it would be worth so much money.
Yeah, they're worth $1 million now, roughly. But
Countach, right?
Yeah, Countach were about $1 million if they're great. But yeah, his would be worth stupid money. And you know, that was such a iconic car for the time, and the combination of the two things would be just unheard of. You know, there was
somebody's got it.
Yeah, they do. I heard it was in Japan, but I'm not sure. We'll have to see if it ever comes up. But my buddy that's down in Florida, that's all he does is he restores Countaches and vintage Lamborghinis, and that's his business. So that's all he does is find these rare cars even with rare provenance. A lot of them, you know. I was in there, and I think I went in his showroom in Miami, and they had Ralph Lauren's Countach.
Oh man!
They had a bunch of celebrity Countaches in there. Yeah, they had, I think one of the CEO of State Farm or somebody, and a few other. They had 3 or 4 Countaches in there. That's how many they carry.
Are some of them customized in the interior to the client?
Just color back then, I think. I don't think they had a lot of
like Ralph Lauren. Is there like
It was his was blue. His was blue, I think.
Okay.
I remember when I was in there, but. Yeah, it just happened. They don't usually open it up, but that particular day they let me come in and check out all the cars, and
damn,
you know, it's some ridiculous cars. And so that car that he got from Eddie, you know, Eddie sold that car. It looked like in 19s when it came, the one he got for his wedding from Valerie, you know, the Miura, and that car was sent back to Italy to be totally restored to new. So it was sent back. It was a couple of years that it was there, and they totally restored it. It looks exactly the same, but it's new now. Wow. And they still have the license tag that was the April 11th license tag. That was his wedding date, right? And that was bought, then rebought by a gentleman in the U.S., and it's still in a collection in the U.S.
Wow.
That's excellent.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The car still lives on. It has I think it has a Van Halen thing on inside of it, and of course the tag. So yeah, it's still out there. So we'll probably see it around in shows at Pebble Beach and things like that.
My goodness!
Until it hits Barrett Jackson.
Yeah, it might. It could, and then it gets sold again to some other collector. But at least it's a living piece of we've seen the video of him when he drives up in that place and he's showing the guys, it's a go-kart, it's just a glorified go-kart and all that. That car, he drove that car, that was the car from Panama, and that we hear in the middle.
Right. Yep.
And he loved that car. That was he got rid of the Countach pretty quickly, from what I understand. It was not long after that. I read an article. You guys could help me on this because it's so long ago, but I remember him saying that he put it up on blocks and pulled all the oil out of it. And I don't know if it was the insurance that was stupid or he just didn't like driving. People say a Countach is a very difficult car to drive because it's not got any power steering, I don't think. And it's a brute, it's a big V12 and just a brute. And but it's a it's an iconic car.
It's probably better on a straight line than it is on a curve.
They're easier to steer when you've got momentum. Once the car's moving, you don't have to have the power steering so much.
Right. It's kind of like the DeLorean. It's an icon, It's an amazing icon.
But a piece of crap.
You've heard some people are actually taking those and they've been converting them to electric and restoring them. There was a bunch of parts and they were trying to put them back together. A lot of the originals.
There is a company that does that.
Yeah, you're right.
They're still, spitting them out. Yeah.
I just saw a video. One of the channels I watched that DeLorean's getting back in the game with a new car.
Oh wow!
Under that name, of course, not the same ownership, of course, but yeah, the name.
I think it was a great idea. Stainless steel body. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, but heavy, right? Pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And dangerous. When the battery goes, you can't get out of the damn car.
That's true. It can be dangerous. Crazy. So what else you guys want to know? Anything else you want to talk about?
Man, first of all, we can do this for hours.
All night.
Okay?
We might need a part 2.
Yeah, anytime. I can do it. Tuesday nights are usually pretty good. Did you guys see the video that came out this
Can't
morning?
hear you, Tony. Your mic's off.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Sorry.
Yeah, there was a video that came out I saw this morning that of the Van Halens talking in Dutch. They were doing a Dutch interview, but it was at 5150, which kind of surprised me. I was like, what is this? And it turns out this is I think it's the guy that we know that was always in contact with them from, I think he was the Dutch fan club guy. You guys remember that guy?
Oh, yeah, I do. Yep.
Okay. Well, anyway, I think this was him interviewing them at 5150. They were listening to humans being in 5150, which I'd never seen. And then they kind of pan through the studio and show some of the gear. And right in the middle of the studio is one of the cabinets we see on that first tour, those stripped Marshall cabinets sitting in the middle of the studio in 5 or 6 it was. And that's the first time I've ever seen that interview. They talk in Dutch a lot in it. Like the other interview from, was it 79, 80, where they were talking in Dutch, but they were in Amsterdam or whatever at the time. But this is the first one I've ever seen where they were at 5150 and they were talking Dutch. And
that's awesome.
About that album.
Yeah, Keith is right. Michael Schinkel. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's where the video came from. I mean, I think it came from their interview. Yeah, and it was cool. We're seeing little, like you said, Tony, we're seeing things pop out that we didn't know existed.
There's a lot more out there, I'm sure, that's going to surface. I mean, eventually somebody's going to find something in an attic or something, and they're going to go, wow, look at this, some obscure Van Halen thing, and they're going to post it. And, and we're going to jump on it.
Well, you've heard that. Like you've heard John 5 say that he's been to David Lee Roth's house and watched pro shot videos from the early era.
Yeah.
I need John 5 on my podcast. What do you guys think?
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
We need answers.
Yes.
Yeah.
We want more.
Hey, Chuck, what's up? Nice
good
to
see you,
Chuck.
Right on, man.
Chuck.
That's a good one. Thanks, Keith, for chiming in on that, Michael Schinkel. I remember all the stories that he did, too. He work with the desk on a lot of those, I believe. He would be a contributor, maybe.
He was very involved with a lot of stuff, yeah. I think he had his own website for a while, too.
Yeah, and then there's a video.
The Van Halen Dutch website or something, I think it was called.
Yeah, you're right. Right. Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about that. Does everybody know the coordinates of Eddie's hometown?
Yes.
Did you know that?
5150, right?
Did you know that?
Yeah.
One of the Dutch.
Isn't that weird?
Somebody from.
What is it, Ed?
It includes the numbers 5150 in the coordinates of his house.
His hometown.
His hometown, yeah.
In Amsterdam, though, but not in Amsterdam.
Yeah, in Amsterdam.
What's the other town that he lived in?
Nugent. I don't know how to pronounce
whatever it is. How do we say it? But that's where, if you look that up and you punch in the coordinates, it has 5150 in it. It is 5150, then maybe a few more numbers, but
wow.
Yeah.
I think Holly Lewis was the one that told me this.
Yeah.
She knew somebody in Amsterdam that knew this.
I heard that years ago for some reason.
I went on there.
But Tony, that would have been a great trivia question.
Right. I could have.
Still might be.
Years from now.
I mean, can you believe that? I couldn't believe that was real. But then I looked.
That is odd.
That's so weird.
Wow.
Such a strange. Yeah, the whole. Well, you're talking about the Dutch group. There's a video where he's interviewing them in Amsterdam, I think it is, or he's videoing, and all the family members from the Van Halen family are there. There's some family members there. You guys remember seeing that? You remember seeing it?
I don't think I do.
I'm not remembering it.
Keith, you remember when seeing that video where Eddie's in Amsterdam and some of his family from Amsterdam is there, or from the Netherlands is there? Because I remember them saying something about this is my uncle or whatever, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I guess there's still family over there. I haven't uncovered that, but I thought about how we could figure that out, whether there's actual family still in Amsterdam or that area. Nobody I've never been to the location of their homes there, but there's a video that somebody recently put up of 2 locations in Amsterdam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that I saw where he actually shows the different apartments, kind of like the vlogs I'm doing, but he did it for those 2 locations there. Because Eddie was, I think, born in the house at home, I want to say, but I may be wrong. But there.
So I wonder how many Van Halens there actually are over there.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Extended family. Yeah.
Yeah, there's got to be. There's got to be.
I mean, what's the let's go on ancestry.
Yeah, because you
look up Jan Van Halen.
Right. There's got to be, all of his relatives.
Right.
And
it's got to be.
Of course, then you have her side, which is Indonesian, so they could be on the other side of the world.
That's going to be tough.
Of course, she said, the reason Ed said, the reason they came to America is her family was in California, right? And then he was upset because Dad couldn't get any work, and he was kind of like that. Didn't turn out so well. He had hard words to say about it, but but it's a pretty amazing. I mean, there's so many avenues you could go down.
Wouldn't it be wild if she was kin to somebody famous?
Right.
You never know.
You never know. You guys seen the new show where they're doing that, where they went back on Valerie Bertinelli's?
I saw the Sammy Hagar one.
Right. You saw that one where he found out his father's that line that he's not really a Hagar or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That's okay. So Keith says Jan has got Italian ancestry as well. Okay, cool. How you know that? How you know that, Keith? That's pretty good, man. Italian, huh? Maybe he is related to that guy. We see the Italian guy tapping in the.
You never know.
Maybe he really is related to.
You never know.
Next level. Next level.
That's
what
right.
if he was? Would you guys freak out if that guy with his whatever? That'd be wild. It's crazy to think that there might be. There is a girl that one of my friends follows that's a Van Halen that's in that area. She's younger though, so I don't know whether she's related, but I haven't really dug into it. But there are a million different ways you could dig into this story, and that's kind of like I got to figure out how much time I can cut aside to do all these, man. There's just a lot. There's a ton.
Yeah. If anybody's going to find it, it's going to be you, my friend.
Right.
Well, I got a list. Of people. I make a list every year of people that I want to get with. I've tried to get a lot of people that Greg has suggested to me that because of their circumstances. One of them's the bus driver for actually hauls gear for Goo Goo Dolls. And he was his name's Tommy Gervin, and he was the guitar player for Eddie Money back in the day.
Yeah, I remember Tommy Gervin.
Wow. So Tommy Gervin has a really close set of stories with Eddie. Of course, Rusty Anderson, who plays with Paul McCartney, was close with that group of people back in the day. There are a number of people in that area. Of course, Chris Holmes was one I've been trying to get as well. He's been on a few things, but I don't know if he wants to go as deep as I want him to go. I don't think he wants to talk too much about all the stuff that he did back then. But maybe
you got to tread lightly.
Yeah, right. Maybe I'm working on him. I want him to come on, and his bandmate has been trying to help me get him, and he's tentatively agreed through other people, multiple people, that he would come on. But he's in France, so you got that to contend with. He's been on tour.
Yeah.
He's been working a good bit. Man, that's something I have to look at with every person that I approach is how much availability do they have at a particular time? Like Nuno. I'd love to have Nuno. Maybe I can catch him as he comes through town. It's not real easy to interview somebody when they're on the road, but it's possible. Wolfgang, I reached out to. I've actually reached out through his publicist to him. At the time, again, he was kind of in the middle of a bunch of projects doing what he's doing. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, hit and miss when you can get somebody. I got Andy Timmons, which was a surprise. I had this publicist who represented Lukather, who represented Timmons. And Lukather was in Europe, and I couldn't get Lukather. But I said, what about Andy Timmons? And he reached out to Andy Timmons, and he got me Andy Timmons. So that was like I didn't expect to get Andy Timmons.
Wow.
And Andy was great. I mean,
dropped in your lap.
It was, and he was such a sweet guy. I mean, I love the guy. It's so cool to get to know somebody like Phil X or Andy, who are just, they're superhuman, cool people. Yeah. And I was at the NAMM show and I wanted to see Phil, so I went over and got in line for his signing and his little thing that he was doing at this booth. And I got to the front and he goes like, did you wait in line for me? I was like, yeah. What the hell are you talking about, man? I said, I wanted to see you, man. I wanted to say hey and thanks and whatever. I saw him out just on the floor. We hung out and talked, but I wanted to make sure that I saw him. I wanted to make sure I had a minute to see him, and I want to make sure that I said thanks and that he was one of my first guests that just the way that he came across was so powerful. With his stories, and he was like the ideal guest. You talk about favorite guest. The way that he emoted and told his story was,
he seems so happy all the time, and
dude,
he's just like a bright light.
He is, and he loves Eddie so much, just like all of us.
Yeah.
He's just. There's moments, I cut out a few here and there. If you go through the playlist, if you go through the Van Halen Stories playlist, which has every interview, you go down to the bottom of that, you'll see little clips that are short excerpts from the episodes. And there's 3 or 4 of them of Phil when he's talking, because those moments are so concise and so good. I can like a lot of the conversations I have are so long form that it's hard to get it all in a little 3-minute thing.
Yeah.
And occasionally I'll get one where it's like, okay, this could actually work in a 3-minute thing. But most of the time the stories are pretty drawn out to tell the detail. Right. And so I don't do a lot of short clips because of that. But in those particular cases with Phil, these were these wonderful moments that he talked about.
Nuggets.
Beautiful stuff. I love that. So one where he shakes his hand and he goes, you're the king. He just looks at him and says, you're the king. I go, you didn't tell him that. He's, yeah, I did. I just said, you're the king.
That's awesome.
It was so Phil. And so Phil X, though, the way that he is. It's just love him. Great guy.
That's
all fantastic.
Fun.
Jeff, this has been absolutely outstanding.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I loved it.
It has been fun, Jeff. Thanks for being here, dude.
Sure.
Anytime,
thank you.
Anytime you want, come back. Any Tuesday, bro.
Yeah, anytime you guys want. If something comes up that would be a great thing to talk about, I'll drop in and we'll do it. If I get that Tony Iommi or that Brian May.
Oh,
dude.
Yeah.
I'd love to come back and talk about that or anything else that happens that's cool.
So everybody, if you are not subscribed to Jeff on YouTube, go down and you'll find his link down in the description of this show. And go subscribe. There is a mountain of stuff, a mountain of Van Halen stuff, and you will love absolutely all of it. You probably already know who he is, but should you not, the link's down below. It is some Van Halen gold over there.
Yes.
And Jeff, thank you for that. Thanks for what you're doing.
Sure.
Thanks for
of course
carrying the VH torch.
I do it because I love it. That's the only, that's
Absolutely.
It's not, like I said, it's not work. When hanging out with you guys or doing videos is like the fun part of my day. It's what we get up for, and so it's not like it's work, but it's work I love. So
talking Van Halen's easy, man.
Right on.
Especially when you love it like we do.
I know, but you can get lost in it.
You always have to.
Time can go away. Time.
Yeah.
You think you're going to spend 5 minutes on the phone, and all of a sudden, it's midnight. Or
I'm going to show you this. All right, this is my
Whoa.
nice.
My bandmates decided, because I was the biggest Van Halen fan on the planet, that I had to have the biggest Van Halen necklace on the planet.
Oh my God! Look at that.
That's the biggest Van Halen necklace I've ever.
Is that aluminum?
It's made out of it's a 3D printed.
Oh, it's plastic. Oh,
Yeah.
Sweet.
Nice.
Excellent.
It's my
Excellent.
and they presented that to me on Halloween in front of the entire crowd and said, "There you go, there you go. All right."
Oh,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
They said, "This is for you." My wife got a little bit smaller one for her.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
If you guys go out there, if you're into 3D printing, you can actually go out and get the original necklace template on the 3D printed sites.
Yeah, I don't have one of those. I have the one of the redone ones or whatever you want to call it.
Right, Van Halen should redo it, right?
Yeah.
And but you can go out in the 3D on the 3D sites, and you can download the template if you have a 3D printer and make plastic ones of it.
Oh.
Yeah. That's just the original, like, blown up. You can take a 3D
obviously.
Obviously, yeah. But it came from the small version, and they just made it. And when you get into the software, you can actually do whatever you want. So it's like
the rapper version, of it, like Flavor Flav.
That's exactly what we said. The Flavor Flav version of the Van Halen
playing going on for
just put a clock on it.
All right, kids.
That's great.
We're going to wind things down. Jeff, thanks again.
Great job, brother.
Good to meet you, Charles. And
awesome.
Everybody, if you're hanging out this weekend, we do a show about guitar picks and rock memorabilia on Saturdays at 9 p.m. We call it Show Me Your Pick. This Saturday, we're talking the late Toby Keith. Rest in peace. We'll show you a bunch of Toby stuff from the Big Dog Daddy himself.
Yeah.
Mr. Toby already.
Yeah.
We'll talk all things Toby Keith Saturday night right here on the channel.
He's gone way too soon, man.
Right.
Yeah.
How old was Toby? Right. How old was Toby?
62, I believe. 62, he was my age.
Dang, man.
He was. All right, kids, leave a thumbs up here on the video. Subscribe here if you are not already. Thank you for doing that. We talk Van Halen here every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. right here. We'll be back here next week, and we'll be talking all things Van Halen. We talk Mammoth WVH.
Right.
Also, in this spring, we'll be talking quite a lot of Mammoth WVH. Prepare yourselves. Yep. And for everybody, thanks for being a Van Halen fan. God love you for that. Any last words, Charles Greene?
Guys, this is Halenville. Around here, it doesn't matter if you go north, south, east, or west. Every single road is going to lead you to some Van Halen. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Absolutely enjoyed this. We love you. Chat, we love you guys. Have a wonderful weekend. Hey, tomorrow's Boner Jam's birthday, guys. Wish him a happy birthday, man.
All right, Boner.
Hey, Boner, brother.
Right on. Love you guys. And rock on.
Happy VD.
On.
Now,